In a shop, as a girl gets dressed up nicely, her mother praised that, as expected, expensive clothes changed everything, as light as an angel's wing. The children around her embraced and praised her, stating that she looked so cool and truly resembled an adult. Meanwhile, the girl calculated in her mind, thinking that if she worked for 52 weeks, 5 days a week, that would be 260 times. Even if she wore the outfit every 3 days, that would be 87 times. If she continued wearing it every 3 days for 3 years, it would be like spending a significant amount per day. As she tried it on, she realized that it would mean she would have to wear only those clothes for 3 months straight. Her mother, addressing her as Min Young, questioned what she was thinking. She believed Min Young was so smart that she would do well wherever she went, but she still felt a little worried. She explained that work life was different from school, and sometimes things happened without reason. Therefore, no matter what, Min Young had to engrave 3 things in her heart. First, she must absolutely obey whatever her superior said and never complain. Second, she had to say what others wanted to hear rather than what she wanted to say. And last but not least, whenever she made eye contact, she had to smile. 10 years later, Min Kyung had followed her mother's words diligently. She spoke cautiously, managed her expressions perfectly, and with her almost superhuman work ethic achieved top scores in entrance exams, top scores in training evaluations, and top rankings in competitions. She became the most desirable coworker, won first place in the company's sports competition, secured first place in the company's Golden Belt quiz, and achieved the highest customer satisfaction scores. Excelling in every task, she rapidly advanced on the fast track for promotion until yesterday. As Min Kyung stood dazed after hearing the word secretary, the CEO stated that an official announcement would be made soon. She would be appointed as the secretary and assistant to Tae Lee in the trading team. Min Kyung, already an assistant, realized that the CEO wanted her to take on the secretary role as well. Recalling all the hardships she had endured, she questioned the meaning behind this sudden decision. She questioned if she had been working like a loyal dog for a decade only to face a demotion. Barely holding back her anger, Min Kyung decided to ask if she had made any mistakes while working, pleading to be informed so she could correct them. However, the CEO assured her that there had been no mistakes, as it's quite the opposite. She had been too good. He stated that manager Kang was called in, and it was stated that he understood its unreasonable request. One even he regretted, as he did not want to lose talent like manager Kang. However, after reviewing everything, it seemed that she was the only one capable of handling the matter concerning Tae Lee. She would soon receive an interesting proposal about him from Songbakje, Songbakja, a place surrounded by a blue barrier made of pine and nut trees. Sunlight shone through, creating a solemn atmosphere. This place served as a symbol of Korea's business community. The mention of Songbakja, located within the estate of TK Group's leader, Tae Se-won, directly reflected Chairman Tae Se-won's decision, the man soon to become the president of TK Group. Min Kyung understood that this was an all-or-nothing situation. It meant either the best opportunity or the biggest crisis of her life had arrived. The scene shifted to the airport, where Tae Lee landed in casual clothes. As he arrived, a person called out to him, addressing him as the director, who was assistant manager Kim Ki-chon. Kim Chon, addressing Tae Lee, inquired about his flight. Tae Lee, pouting slightly, responded that it was good. Kim Chon thanked him for his hard work on the business trip. But Tae Lee chuckled inwardly, questioning what he meant. After all, the business trip had been nothing but an excuse. He had finally managed to let go of the grudge he had held onto for years. For 34 years, he had dedicated his entire life to TK Group in order to become the owner of Songbakje. However, after suddenly falling victim to a scheme by Taejun, he had lost all the core business assets to this child. He now questioned what he had been living for all this time. Now that things had turned out this way, he intended to enjoy himself. As he had just left, leaving a note behind, Taejun had been greatly annoyed, wondering how the company still ran so well without him. Boarding the car, Tae Lee cautiously instructed Kim Chun to head to his apartment in Cheongwon-dong. However, Kim Chun informed him that there was a message instructing him to go directly to the strategic planning division upon his return. Tae Lee, surprised, questioned whether the message was from Taejun. He then attempted to say that he was exhausted and should go to the hospital instead. However, as his phone rang, he became visibly annoyed and questioned who it was. Seeing that it was Taejun, he ended the call, thinking that he should take a break. Yet, as the phone rang again and again, Tae Lee screamed in frustration, questioning whether it was Taejun and what he was doing. He had to either pick up or decline decline. Kim Chong then stated that it was assistant manager Kang from the electronics department. Tae Lee flinched slightly, recognizing the name. He thought to himself, was it assistant manager Kang Min Kyung? He recalled that she is a colleague who had joined the company around the same time as him. As Kim Chong responded to the call, he mentioned that she should talk to the director about it. Handing over the call, Tae Lee, feeling uneasy, questioned what was happening. Something about it was making him nervous. Answering the call, he asked how he could help. Min Kyung greeted him and informed him that starting today, she would be his personal secretary and business aide. Tae Lee frowned, questioning why a high-ranking assistant manager like her would become a secretary. He wondered if Tae Jun had assigned her to this. Min Kyung chuckled, suggesting that he discuss the details with managing director Tae Jun. Grinding his teeth, Tae Lee thought to himself, if Tae Jun gone crazy? Frustrated, he declared that enough was enough. He refused to accept a secretary and ordered Min Kyung to inform them that he was going to rest. Ending the call, he assumed that was the end of it. However, Min Kyung turned to Tae Jun, informing him that Tae Lee had hung up. Tae Jun smirked and instructed her to proceed without any changes to the schedule. The scene shifted to the apartment, where Tae Lee, half-naked, sighed in relief, thinking that he could finally catch his breath. However, as his phone rang again, he picked it up with clear annoyance, questioning Kim Chan about the call. Kim Chan hesitated before asking if he could come in for a moment. Tae Lee recognized his voice and, realizing that Kim Chan was at the door, said that manager Kang wanted to come in. Tae Lee then grumbled, questioning if it was Min Kyung and how she knew about his place. Min Kyung, taking the phone, formally introduced herself. Tae Lee, frustrated, demanded to know how she knew such details. He wondered why Deputy Director Kang, who must have been busy with company work, had come all the way to his door. Min Kyung then stated that she was Kang Min Kyung and that she would be assisting Executive Director Tae Lee from today as his secretary. Tae Lee, taken aback, questioned whether she was serious. Min Kyung calmly responded that these orders came from Song Baekja. She then apologized, stating that time was running out and announced that she was entering now. Panicked, Tae Lee scrambled, stumbling as he tried to stop her. He pleaded for a moment, but the door opened before he could react. Min Kyung stepped in, greeting him formally, but as her eyes took in the scene before her, she froze in place, utterly dazed, staring at the half-naked Tae Lee. Seeing the incident unfold in front of her, Min Kyung smiled but turned to shut the door while Tae Lee, barely able to contain his anger, screamed out. Afterwards, as he got dressed, he stepped out, prompting Min Kyung to comment that only 15 minutes remained and to ask if he was ready. In response, Tae Lee firmly stated that he was not prepared at all to leave. As she could see, he had not even taken a shower, he was hungry, and he did not even have any clothes to wear. Hearing this, Min Kyung assured him not to worry and called out for assistant Kim Kyun. As Kim Chun was ready with the suits, Min Kyung explained that his clothes had been dry cleaned and prepared in advance and that sandwiches had also been made for breakfast. Tae Lee, still unable to hold back his frustration, stated that he did not eat sandwiches. Min Kyung, however, clarified that based on his preferences, they had prepared a ham and cheese sandwich without vegetables, along with an egg sandwich, ensuring he would eat. She further explained that they would proceed while providing detailed schedules and explanations as they moved, causing Tae Lee to yell for her to wait a moment. He pointed out that just because she was his secretary, it did not mean she had to track him down like this, even at home. He emphasized that this was his private space, where he lived freely, rolling around, undressing, and moving as he pleased. He then questioned whether she would be able to handle it. Taking a pause, Min Kyung stated that if he felt uncomfortable because she was a woman, before she could continue, Tae Lee stopped her. He suddenly smiled and burst into laughter, questioning if she was crazy for even suggesting that he felt uncomfortable because of a girl. Min Kyung, unfazed, acknowledged his reaction, expressing relief that the executive director seemed to view her in a comfortable light. With 10 minutes left until departure, she remarked that there would not be enough time for a shower. Calling out for Kim Chon, she revealed that she had anticipated this and had already prepared a wet towel. She proceeded to put on gloves and instructed Kim Chon to get ready as he brought out a bucket and shampoo. As she approached Tae Lee, she reassured him that he did not need to do anything. However, Tae Lee, now alarmed, questioned what she was trying to do. With a furious scream, Tae Lee demanded that she take that away from him immediately, to which Min Kyung complied, pausing momentarily while Tae Lee stared at her, noticing her unwavering confidence. Letting out a sigh, he asked her to wait, stating that he would wash up in 5 minutes before heading inside. Tae-lee knew that loose-fitting hair, dull eyeglasses, and a two-piece suit, the same fashion sense for 10 years, was quite remarkable in its consistency. Nothing had changed since they first met, yet he still disliked how she subtly got on his nerves. A flashback followed, shifting to the past when TK Group had announced the new trainers of the 53rd batch, presenting the outstanding employees. The top-ranked position had been awarded to Kang Min-kyung, while the second place had gone to Tae-lee. Tae-lee had dedicated his entire life to living up to the name of TK Group's successor. Fortunately, he had met the expectations of those around him. Since childhood, he had been hailed as a prodigy, his achievements being the result of his tremendous efforts. As a result, he had never failed to rank at the top. However, securing second place had been a significant setback for him. When it was announced that the top-ranked position had been awarded to Kang Min-kyung and the second place to Tae-sia, the audience had erupted in applause. Holding in his anger, Tae-lee had fixated on Min-kyung with a sharp gaze. Returning to the present, Tae-lee dried his hair, confirming that 5 minutes remained. Min-kyung affirmed that he was correct. As he glanced at her, he could not help but think that, of all people, she had to be the one assigned as his secretary. Getting dressed, he called out to Min-kyung, stating that he disliked having a close personal secretary. In response, Min-kyung took a composed stance, assuring him that she would do her best to accommodate him. Tae-lee, however, denied this, clarifying that she was good at playing dumb. He pointed out that he had even managed to enlist people he disliked, but this situation was simply not going to work out. Addressing her directly, he informed Deputy Director Kang Min-kyung that he did not like her. Min-kyung recalled their first day at the training center when, from the moment they had been assigned to the same group, Tae-lee had hated her. As Tae-lee instructed her to quit while she was ahead, Min-kyung paused briefly before addressing him formally as the executive director. She reminded him that they were already 7 minutes behind schedule and needed to leave. Tae-lee was left momentarily baffled. Remaining composed, Min-kyung informed him that Chairman Tae Si-won was waiting for him, causing Tae-lee to sigh in resignation. Acknowledging the situation, he finished dressing and stated that they should leave. While walking down the hallway, Min-kyung recalled his previous words about disliking her. However, she knew that she had never liked him either since the day they first met 10 years ago. To her, TK Group's prince had always been nothing more than a bratty chaebol heir. Despite this, she quickly swallowed down her thoughts. The scene then shifted to the car as they boarded. While stealing a glance at Tae-lee, Min-kyung found herself gulping down her thoughts again. Despite everything, she could not deny that at least in terms of looks, Tae-lee was exactly her type. A week ago, the chairman of TK Group, Tae Si-hwan, questioned whether the assistant manager Min-kyung was the one being referred to. Min-kyung affirmed that it was her. The chairman mentioned that he had heard a lot about her from director Tae-jun and that she was a good employee, as he had stated. He encouraged her to do her best as the executive director, Tae-lee's assistant. As Min-kyung attempted to tell the chairman that she still had much room for improvement, he noted that he had heard her siblings were promising young athletes in winter sports. He remarked that if they took after her, then they must be exceptionally talented. Since TK Group valued supporting talented athletes, he implied that this was an advantage. Recalling Tae-jun's words about an interesting offer, Min-kyung realized that this was what director Tae-jun had referred to. After stepping outside the mansion, she felt drained from the chairman's intense gaze, which reminded her of a tiger. His eyes had the same piercing look when he instructed her to do her best. However, she reassured herself that she had no reason to be scared as she had done well so far. She considered how her siblings might have been worried about financial issues without her knowledge, and if they could now focus entirely on their sports, it would be for the best. As Min-kyung received a call from her brother, Min-wan, she answered while her brothers excitedly cheered for her. They announced that they were celebrating their official sportsmanship comrade event and had thrown a big party for it. Min-kyung affirmed that they should enjoy themselves, while inadvertently shedding tears, thinking that as long as they were happy, she was fine with it. Returning to the present, Min-kyung found herself contemplating the offer, realizing its significance. She reminded herself not to dwell too much on it and instead focus on handling her responsibilities for her family's sake. With firm determination, she started her first day as Tae-lee's secretary. At the mansion, Tae-lee massaged his grandfather, asking if he remembered the cake in front of him, mentioning that it was similar to the one he had bought for him in Austria when he was a child. He then inquired about his grandfather's health. The chairman responded that nothing had changed. Min Kyung observed that the president, Tae Si-won, seemed completely different from the last time she had seen him. She found it hard to believe that he appeared so kind. Tae Lee suggested that they should go on a vacation together next time, but the chairman firmly stated that he was more comfortable staying at home. Min Kyung noted that Tae Lee seemed to be the only person capable of making the chairman appear so gentle. As the chairman turned his attention to assistant manager Min Kyung, he questioned whether she was performing her duties properly. Maintaining her composure, Min Kyung confidently affirmed that although it was her first day, she was still adjusting. Internally, however, she wondered why he was looking at her in such a manner. The chairman pointed out that she had arrived a little late that day, promised to correct herself. Noticing her trembling hands, Tae Lee silently observed the situation, inadvertently questioning what was wrong with her. He recalled her usual composed demeanor and found it vastly different from how she appeared now. The chairman expressed high expectations for her, to which Min Kyung responded that she was honored. He then stated that he hoped she would not disappoint him. Min Kyung assured him that she would do her best to meet his expectations, while Tae Lee, noticing her nervousness, realized that she was truly scared. The chairman then addressed Tae Lee, instructing him to visit Songbekja and make an appearance, while also providing a product briefing. Turning to assistant manager Min Kyung, he asked if she had a copy of the necessary documents, and she confirmed that she did. The chairman emphasized that Tae Lee was the core of TKC&T and therefore the best personnel should be assisting him. Tae Lee agreed, acknowledging that there was no one quite like assistant manager Kang. As Tae Lee addressed his grandfather, he mentioned that he also thought highly of assistant manager Kang. Min Kyung, upon hearing this, became anxious about what he was going to say next. Tae Lee then added that the assistant manager could enter and exit his house freely to act as an attendant. Min Kyung, alarmed, desperately hoped he would stop talking, fearing that she might get fired on her first day. Clutching onto Tae Lee with a frightened expression, she inwardly prayed for him to remain silent. Tae Lee, realizing her distress, tried to clarify his statement, but Min Kyung, tears forming in her eyes, tightened her grip on him and shook her head. Tae Lee attempted to say that he might have taken things too far, but Min Kyung subtly signaled him to stop talking. The chairman, noticing this, urged Tae Lee to continue. With a smile, Tae Lee changed the subject, simply expressing his gratitude for having assistant manager Kang as his secretary. At night, Min Kyung found herself exhausted from the intense day. She thought that perhaps she was drained because she had exerted so much mental effort. Arriving home, she unlocked the door, thinking about taking a shower and getting some rest. However, as soon as she opened the door, she was greeted by her two younger brothers, who immediately jumped on her, demanding to know why she was so late. They had been waiting for her while preparing a surprise celebration. Her roommate, Lee Si-ah, warmly welcomed her and acknowledged that she must have been working hard. However, she also questioned why Min Kyung had been so late and whether she had eaten yet. Confused, Min Kyung asked what was going on. Si-ah explained that she had prepared a surprise party after hearing the good news from the twins. As Min Kyung laughed at the situation, Si-ah encouraged her to freshen up while she finished cooking. Observing the casual and chaotic atmosphere created by her brothers and Si-ah, Min Kyung felt both stressed and touched. She reflected on how raising children was said to take an entire community, and she could relate to that sentiment. After taking a shower, Min Kyung felt refreshed. Sia entered and asked if she had washed up, mentioning that Upa would be arriving soon and that they should eat together. Min Kyung asked if it was Hoonsong, and just then the doorbell rang. Sia guessed that he had arrived and went to greet him. As she welcomed him, she inquired about when he had returned to Korea. He replied that there had been a lot of traffic on his way. Meanwhile, Min Kyung stepped into the hall as the guest greeted her, stating that it had been a long time since they had last seen each other. As Hyunsong greeted Min Kyung, she questioned why he had not informed her of his arrival, to which Hyunsong laughed, pointing out that she had not changed at all. Feeling somewhat embarrassed, Min Kyung asked if this conversation was just a way to show off a t-shirt. Hyunsong affirmed that she still liked that character, since it was Min Kyung's favorite veggie character. Their families, having grown up in the same neighborhood, had naturally become close. As someone who had graduated from school earlier than her parents, these two individuals had become her most precious childhood memories. In particular, Hyunsong, her senior, had turned into a reliable older brother who had provided significant support when she had entered university at a young age. Cheering up with a drink, Si-ah questioned what Min-kyung planned to do, noting that she had never tasted beer and always claimed she was missing out on life's best pleasures. Min-kyung stated that it was not a big deal if she could not drink alcohol for a day or two, but on a day like this it would be nice to have just one glass. Si-ah cheered, congratulating the twins on the TK sponsorship and even on Hyung-sung being scouted. One of the twins questioned whether being scouted by M&P law firm was an impressive feat, asking if he was really back in Korea now. Hyun-sung replied that he was moving back, since he had been assigned to handle a trading item this time. He inquired about the team Min-kyung had joined. Min-kyung stated that she had also started working in the trading team that very day, but Si-ah, quite flashing through her lies, asked that today was her first day as a secretary. Hyun-sung, quite surprised, asked if she was indeed working as a secretary. Si-ah took this as an opportunity to tease Min-kyung, questioning her thoughts on working closely with Tae-lee. Min-kyung, playfully displaying a question, wondered aloud how she felt and whether she even needed to express it. Si-ah smirked, questioning why she had such a sour expression, stating that Tae-lee was known as the only grandson of the TK Group chairman, Tae Si-hwan, one of the nation's top conglomerates. With Tae-lee being prominent since childhood and an idol-like appearance, he had grown up capturing the nation's attention with his aristocratic image. That interaction had led to excessive intrusion by paparazzi and reports. Perhaps that was why, upon reaching adulthood, he had avoided media exposure and had suddenly disappeared from the public eye. As a result, rumors about his looks were the only thing circulating. But she jabbed at Min-kyung, questioning whether it was hard to believe there were no feelings attached to being beside a chaebol heir. Some had said that photocards of him could be traded. Being Tae-lee's special assistant was like an escalator to promotion. Min-kyung responded that she would be lucky not to get fired. Si-ah questioned what she had meant by that, and what had gone wrong. Min-kyung hesitated before stating that the executive director did not seem to like her, causing the others to gasp. He exclaimed to question about the reason. Min-kyung explained that she and Tae-lee had joined the company around the same time but had never spoken. She was certain he had disliked her ever since he had first seen her at the training center. Well, she admitted that they both had an aversion to each other, but due to unfortunate circumstances, they were required to work together in an uncomfortable symbiotic relationship. Hyung-sung sighed, noting that she must have been stressed, having to spend so much time by Tae-lee's side when they did not get along. He asked if today had been a difficult day for her. Min-kyung affirmed that it had been true, but she had also received incentives for her hard work. As Hyun-sung got up to massage Min-kyung, he reminded her that money was important, but her health should also be a priority. She had always worked too hard and it worried him. Min-kyung assured him that she would do her best and told him not to worry. She remarked that he was always so kind to her and that she would not suffer as much if her boss were even half as nice. Suddenly, Min-kyung's phone buzzed with messages from Tae-lee to organize the schedule, send it over, prepare materials for the client meeting, and be at his office by 7. Min-kyung was petrified, thinking that he should at least resemble half of what a toenail looked like. The scene shifted to the next morning as Min-kyung greeted the executive director. Tae-lee, checking his watch, stated that she was 30 minutes late. Annoyed, Min-kyung teased that she had arrived on time, but the entrance password had been changed. Tae-lee questioned why it had needed to be changed. Min-kyung stated that she had accommodated the delay to ensure no workflow disruption. Inwardly, she thought it was frustrating. He had changed it himself, yet acted surprised. Tae-lee sighed, asking her to do what she needed to do as he left. Min-kyung questioned when he would be ready for today's scheduled briefing. Tae-lee, still tired, stated that he had just woken up. Min-kyung replied that she had figured as much, so she had brought him morning coffee. Tae-lee remarked that he only drank coffee strictly from Kenya, blended a certain way, rich and heavy, and instructed her to pour it down the drain. Annoyed, Min-kyung affirmed that she would pour it away. As she attempted to mention the briefing, Tae-lee dismissed her, stating that the schedule had been deleted so he would rest more. Min-kyung, trembling with anger, called out that Director Tae-jun was waiting. Tae-lee stated that there had been a meeting with Tae-jun and he should not have woken up so early, instructing her to cancel it. Min-kyung, holding back her frustration, thought that this was only her second day as Tae-lee's secretary. Tae-lee questioned whether she wanted to say anything. Min Kyung, restraining herself, stated that she wished to request first. This was the first time in 10 years her patience had been tested. The scene shifted as Min Kyung explained that TK Electronics' office tower reconstruction would take time, but TK Trading's internal restructuring had proceeded. The next business report would cover trade constructions, Superior Resorts, and TK Fashion Division. Tae Lee, hearing this, commented that the fashion report would be last, questioning whether she had saved the worst for last. TK Fashion, the foundation of TK Group, had become an underperforming business, the group's biggest headache. He questioned why they continued assigning him such businesses and how he was supposed to improve something that was already failing. Rumors suggested it might be sold. He exclaimed that despite working hard, Taejun took the profitable parts and dumped trouble on him. He wondered whether he should just quit. Min Kyung thought that he truly did not want to work. Seeing his laid-back composure, she wondered how she was supposed to carry this forward. She questioned where the enthusiastic Tae Lee from the training center had gone. He had always been mean to her. Glancing at his face, she considered him worthy of his nickname, the Crown Prince. In the present, Tae Lee called Min Kyung out, questioning her expression. Min Kyung hesitated, asking what he wanted to say. She attempted to maintain her composure, reminding herself that she needed to control her expressions. Tae Lee stated that there was no need to deny it. What would the assistant manager, who had been doing so well, do now that she was on Tae Lee's team? Min Kyung denied any issue, apologizing and stating that it was an honor to work under Executive Director Tae Lee. Tae Lee got up, approaching her closely, stating that her lips were dry, yet she dared to lie. He left, instructing her to stop doing that. Taking a pause, Min Kyung felt embarrassed, questioning whether she would be okay. 10 years ago, during the 53rd Annual Recruitment Training Group, the 53rd batch of new employees was officially welcomed into the esteemed TK family at a grand party. During the event, Tae Lee speculated that the focus would be on the individual who had outperformed everyone else and secured the top candidate position. The chairman had inquired about Min Kyung, instructing that when Tae Lee visited the training center this time, he had to carefully observe her and determine whether she was a pillar-worthy individual or merely someone with a sharp mind. These were his grandfather's exact words. As Tae Lee glanced over at Min Kyung, he found himself indifferent, distracted instead by the quiet whispers and murmurs circulating about him in the center of the hall. Observers praised the individual passing by, acknowledging him as the chairman's grandson. There were hushed remarks about his status, with many admiring the fact that he was, indeed, a third-generation chaebol who had everything, including good looks. Tae Lee, amused by these remarks, smiled subtly, aware that such gestures pleased those around him. However, he reflected on how he had grown accustomed to this kind of attention, particularly from women, who often found it difficult to meet his gaze directly. Despite this, he did not particularly enjoy the attention, finding it rather irritating. Taking a sip of his drink, he appreciated the temporary peace that came with quiet moments. He recognized how exhausting it could be to maintain his image throughout the day. Just then, the sound of approaching footsteps drew his attention, revealing Min Kyung as she peeked at Tae Lee. Tae Lee, in turn, observed that she did not avoid his gaze but instead looked directly into his eyes. This left him with an unexpected feeling of unease. In the present, Tae Lee opened his eyes, reflecting on how unexpected that dream had been. From outside, Min Kyung's voice called out, addressing him as the executive director and announcing her arrival. Before he could respond, she entered without hesitation, stating that she had brought documents requiring his approval. Tae Lee, frowning, questioned why she had barged in before he had a chance to respond. However, upon glancing at Min Kyung, he was momentarily struck by how closely she resembled the image from his dream. Min Kyung, noticing his expression, commented that it seemed like he had been asleep and that she simply could not wait any longer. Tae Lee paused for a moment as Min Kyung placed the documents on the table, stating that this was the report on the resort project. He questioned why she was making such a big deal out of something so simple, but upon reviewing the report, he was taken aback by how well organized it was. The clarity of the document made it incredibly easy to read. Tossing the report aside, he instructed the assistant manager to work reasonably, emphasizing that even if she exerted so much effort, it would not change anything. He pointed out that no one would acknowledge it and that the company would not fall apart in her absence. He then asked if she disagreed with his statement. Min Kyung, however, firmly denied any disagreement. She stated that Executive Director Tae Lee was absolutely essential to the trading division. No employee in the past 10 years had failed to recognize the dedication he had shown to TK Group. She then took the opportunity to express her gratitude once again for having such a capable executive director. Tae Lee turned away slightly, instructing her that she could leave and that he would review the report later. Min Kyung acknowledged his words, informing him that he should let her know if any corrections were needed. With that, she exited the office. The scene then shifted to Taejun, who smiled and remarked that he was finally seeing Tae Lee's face after some time. He questioned Tae Lee, reminding him that he had previously stated he would not work. Taejun responded by noting that now that Tae Lee had returned, the higher-ups were excited, as he was truly demonstrating his capabilities. Tae Lee, however, denied any credit, stating that it was actually Min Kyung who had done the work. Hyun Sung, intrigued, questioned whether that was the case, adding that he had thought assigning Kang as Tae Lee's secretary had been a good decision. Tae Lee, unimpressed, inquired about what excuse Taejun had used to transfer Kang Min Kyung, further questioning whether Taejun had discovered some kind of weakness. He pointed out that Taejun should know better than anyone that appointing her as a secretary was excessive. Taejun, however, smirked and countered that Tae Lee should have already figured it out by now. He mentioned that Tae Lee had been investigating the situation for the past few days, with even the director of public relations Yoon Mok getting involved. Tae Lee recalled that Kang Min-won and Kang Min-jun were twin brothers, both university figure skaters. He acknowledged that based on their performance alone, it was still uncertain whether they were suitable for the TK sponsorship. Taejun questioned whether it should even be referred to as sponsorship, considering the circumstances. Taking a moment to think, Tae Lee asked if they were seriously using this as an excuse to assign her as his secretary. Taejun shrugged and reminded Tae Lee that he was the one who had escaped work by going overseas. Given that reality, the least they could do was appoint competent individuals to fill the vacancy he had left behind. Tae Lee, still processing the situation, recalled that Kang Min's parents owned a modest restaurant. With siblings involved in competitive sports, financial burdens were inevitable. If the offer had come from Song Baek-jae, Kang Min Kyung had likely been placed in a situation where refusing the secretary position was not an option. Tae Lee, gripping his glass, realized the implications. Taejun, noticing his reaction, stated that manager Kang was excelling in her role as an executive assistant and that there was nothing wrong with her performance. He then asked if Tae Lee was perhaps concerned about the assistant manager's circumstances. Tae Lee, taken aback, questioned whether he had truly been worried about assistant manager Kang, but he dismissed the idea as impossible. However, as he recalled the moment when Kang had grabbed his arm, he found himself unsettled. The touch, combined with the pleading look in her eyes, had felt unfamiliar. He tried to shake off the feeling, concluding that it was simply a matter of discomfort and nothing more. Despite his efforts, the lingering sense of unease remained, leaving him deep in thought. On a sunny and warm afternoon, the perfect time to relax and enjoy a cup of coffee on a comfortable sofa, the moment was interrupted by the sound of running footsteps. As Tae Lee recognized the steps, Min Kyung barged in the room and was calling out to question whether he was enjoying his brief respite. As Tae Lee called out for her to wait, barely managing to stop his heart from falling, Min Kyung insisted that they should begin with the afternoon's scheduled briefing. While she rambled on about the plans, he attempted to interrupt her. While sitting in the car, he explained to his assistant Kim Chun that his life had turned into a thriller, with his heart pounding like crazy every time he heard approaching footsteps. Especially with the pressure of proving the papers. As the sound of footsteps shattered the silence once more, he grumbled about how there seemed to be no way for Min Kyung to stay still, even for a second. He muttered about how he was supposed to be her boss, yet he constantly found himself feeling nervous. Assistant Kim Chun, unfazed, remarked that, as expected, Assistant Min Young was always full of passion. Tae Lee sighed, expressing disbelief that the car was the only place where he could truly relax. Kim Chun, amused, responded that he was glad to hear it. As the phone rang persistently, he grumbled about who could be calling but was quickly shocked. It was Min Kyung. Assistant Kim Chun confirmed that it was Assistant Manager Min Kyung, while Tae Lee hastily ordered him not to answer. However, without hesitation, Kim Chun picked up the call, introducing himself and asking what it was about. Tae Lee whispered for him not to reveal his location. Min Kyung, undeterred, informed them that she could hear the executive director. Since, as far as she was concerned, there were no scheduled tasks requiring him to be outside, she remained suspicious. Attempting to explain himself, Tae-lee hesitated, insisting that there was definitely something he needed to do outside. Min-kyung, unconvinced, questioned whether he truly believed there was anything she did not know about. She reminded him of the workload waiting for him and requested, perhaps demanded, that he return quickly. When he weakly protested, claiming he was currently busy, she firmly agreed with him, then stated that she would wait until he returned. That was final. Meanwhile, Min-kyung groaned in her room, visibly frustrated, noting that it was already past her work hours and that the situation was getting on her nerves. Si-ah, attempting to console her, acknowledged how hard Min-kyung was working. As the doorbell rang, Si-ah assumed Hyun-sung had arrived and greeted him, inviting him inside. Min-kyung, slightly surprised, remarked that he had come straight after work. Hyun-sung confirmed that he couldn't wait any longer. Si-ah playfully suggested that her brother must have come for the meal cooked by Min-kyung's mother, to which Hyun-sung admitted he couldn't miss the opportunity. Min-kyung, delighted, offered to prepare a large portion for him. However, Hyun-sung quickly interrupted, asking her not to go overboard and stating that just enough for him to try would be fine. Min-kyung assured him that her mother always sent plenty of food and encouraged him to enjoy it. Hyun-sung thanked her, while Si-ah noted that both her brother and Min-kyung seemed incredibly busy. Hyun-sung in turn reminded Min-kyung not to overwork herself. Suddenly recalling something, Hyun-sung addressed Si-ah, asking if she still had a blind date scheduled for the following day. Si-ah, taken aback, stiffened as she demanded to know how he had found out. Hyun-sung casually revealed that the man in question was the son of the director of J Hospital, the very hospital they had visited. Moreover, he had been Hyun-sung's elementary school classmate. Si-ah was visibly shocked by this revelation. Hyun-sung further explained that the man had messaged him 3 days ago, which was how he had found out. According to him, the man had reached out to Si-ah, but she had responded rather bluntly. Because of that, the man had contacted Hyun-sung, wondering if he had done something wrong. Si-ah, now defensive, denied treating him coldly, asking what exactly had been said. Hyun-sung elaborated that the man had simply inquired about her preferences, and he had informed him that she liked the M Hotel French restaurant. Si-ah, still skeptical, asked if there was anything else. Hyun-sung reassured her that there was nothing particularly special other than mentioning that she was the cute and stylish type. Min-kyung, grumbling, repeated the words cute and stylish type incredulously. Si-ah, flustered, defended herself, insisting that she was indeed cute before abruptly pushing Hyun-sung out, urging him to leave and not be late. Hyun-sung laughed and agreed before reminding Min-kyung to thank her mother on his behalf. Afterwards, Min-kyung, now visibly distressed, wondered aloud what she should do. Si-ah, attempting to calm her down, advised her to stay composed. 3 days prior, during a conversation, Si-ah had begged Min-kyung to attend the blind date on her behalf. She had reasoned that it was an expensive place, none other than the M Hotel French restaurant. When Min-kyung skeptically argued that French cuisine was really her favorite, Si-ah assured her that the atmosphere was lovely. Despite her reluctance, Min-kyung had been swayed by Si-ah's plea. With an exaggeratedly cute expression, Si-ah had reminded Min-kyung of how hard she had worked to secure concert tickets for her favorite group. It was the last concert before some of the members enlisted in the military, and if she missed it, there was no guarantee she would ever see a full group performance again. Desperate, she had dramatically held on to Min-kyung, making a grand promise. If Min-kyung helped her this time, she wouldn't ask her to do any housework for the next 6 months. Not only that, but she would also cook, do the dishes, and clean throughout those months. Min-kyung had grumbled that Si-ah didn't need to go that far, but Si-ah had persisted. Eventually, Min-kyung had given in, stating that it would only be for 1 hour. That was how it had all happened. Meanwhile, 8-year veteran fashion magazine editor Si-ah, an advocate of clothing as one of humanity's greatest inventions, had a plan in motion. Standing before Min-kyung, who barely knew anything about fashion, she presented the challenge of transforming her into someone suitable for the occasion. When Min-kyung protested, asking how she was supposed to pretend to be her, Si-ah reassured her that there was nothing to worry about. Opening her impressive wardrobe, wardrobe, she confidently declared that as a fashion expert, she was willing to stake her reputation on making Min Kyung the perfect stand-in. The day had arrived for the dinner appointment with the director's son from J Hospital, and Sia appeared overly excited about it. She called out to Min Kyung, asking if she was ready, to which Min Kyung abruptly denied. Sia clarified that she was referring to her mindset, and Min Kyung affirmed. Encouragingly, Sia cheered her up, insisting they should get changed as she grabbed Min Kyung. Meanwhile, as Sia continued speaking, Min Kyung remained engaged with welcoming the viewers, stating that they had a special guest for the day and asking them to greet our gang. When Min Kyung inquired about Sia's actions, Sia explained that pretending to be a makeup vlogger was quite entertaining. She hesitated for a moment before questioning whether they should begin her makeup routine. Taking out various products, she introduced them as the Organi Emulsion for sensitive skin, an illuminator, a radiant perfecting snail product, and a snail mugwort soothing toner, stating that they should begin with skincare. Complimented Min Young's skin, prompting Min Young to question what she was referring to. Explained that she was role-playing as a makeup vlogger. After some time spent on various preparations, the makeup was completed. Min Kyung took a moment to look at her reflection in the mirror and was quite surprised to see herself, amazed at the transformation. However, they still had one more task left, choosing her outfit. The scene then shifted toward the hotel, where Tae-lee remarked that it had been a while since he had a personal schedule. His assistant, Kim Chun, mentioned that the elementary school alumni reunion was an opportunity to reconnect with old friends after such a long time. He enthusiastically expressed his hope that Tae-lee would enjoy the event. Tae-lee affirmed that he would, thanking Kim Chun. Shortly after, he received a notification instructing him to go directly to the lodge bar, so he began making his way there. Meanwhile, Min Kyung, feeling slightly uneasy, thought about how she had never been to a place like this before and hoped she was not running late. As they crossed paths, the scene transitioned to the hospital director's son, Jong-woo, who expressed his surprise, stating that he had expected her to be small since he had heard she was the cute type. However, he admitted that she was quite tall and very beautiful. Min Kyung responded politely, acknowledging that he was flattering her. When Jong-woo inquired whether she liked the food, she affirmed, despite feeling uncomfortable and as if the food would start coming out of her nose. She recalled Sia's assurance that the dinner would only last an hour and that she needed to endure for just 10 more minutes. Jong-woo then called out to Min Kyung, suggesting that they visit the rooftop lodge bar at the hotel. He mentioned that the lodge bar was famous for its Seoul night cocktail, adding that the combination of cocktails and the view of the night sky was said to be fantastic. Min Kyung laughed and apologized, explaining that she had to go to work the following day. In the bathroom, Min Kyung felt relieved that the dinner was finally over. Since she had not worn makeup in a while, it felt uncomfortable and her eyes felt heavy due to the contact lenses. She decided to remove them. However, as she did so, she suddenly remembered something about the mini vacation and began questioning what she should do about it. She had received a mini vacation to the M Hotel as a gift from Sia and wondered how refundable it would be. Uncertain, she considered her work obligations for the next day. Stepping out, she caught a glimpse of the view and remarked on how beautiful it was. She reflected on the past few months of struggle, wondering when she would ever get another opportunity to relax in a place like this. On top of that, it had been a long time since she had dressed up. Deciding that she should make the most of the night as a different version of herself, she resolved to enjoy the evening. Meanwhile, the scene shifted toward Tae-lee, whose friends encouraged him to keep drinking. One of them asked how the drink tasted, and Tae-lee replied that it was nice. Another friend then inquired if he was seeing someone, to which Tae-lee, caught off guard, questioned why the topic had suddenly come up. His friend explained that since they rarely saw Tae-lee, it was natural to be curious. Another friend chimed in, asking how long he planned on staying single. How long he planned on staying single. As Tae-lee flinched at the comment, one of his friends asked whether there was someone on his mind, perhaps the daughter of a wealthy family. Tae-lee attempted to divert the topic, questioning why they were so invested in his personal life. In response, his friend remarked that nothing could be more interesting than the love life of the third-generation chaebol heir. Another friend cheered, suggesting that they should have a toast wishing for Tae-lee to escape his life of bachelorhood and open the champagne in celebration of his love life. As they raised their glasses, Tae-lee noted to himself that they were far too excited about the topic. Taking another another sip of his drink, he turned his head, only to see Min Kyung standing right far away. As Tae-lee saw Min Kyung in front of him, Tae-lee recognized that the footsteps belonged to assistant manager Kang. However, he dismissed the thought, believing he must be imagining things, thinking, why would Kai Min Kyung be here? As he pondered over it, he decided to text her. The moment he sent the message, he noticed the girl in front of him reaching for her phone. His eyes caught the emoji on her phone. He distinctly remembered seeing it on Min Kyung's phone just a few days ago. It seemed unlikely that anyone else would use something so peculiar. As he received a notification from Min Kyung affirming her work at the office, he realized that the response had arrived the exact moment that person had checked her phone. Doubt crept into his mind if that was really Kang Min Kyung. His friend, noticing his distraction, questioned why he was so focused. He pointed out that Tae-lee had been staring at her for a while, mentioning that she exuded the aura of a model. He then asked if she was his type. Another friend chimed in, suggesting that he had been gazing at her continuously, wondering if it was love at first sight. Tae-lee, finding their conversation too loud, was baffled by their remarks. He simply commented that she looked like someone he knew. Meanwhile, Min Kyung, while looking at the menu, recalled Jung-woo mentioning that cocktails tasted even better when enjoyed while admiring the night view. His words had piqued her curiosity about the Seoul night. When her drink was served, she reasoned that just one drink wouldn't hurt. After all, she planned to stay the night there. She decided to savor the experience to the fullest. As the soothing notes of piano music filled the air, Min Kyung admired the view and thought she looked rather pretty. Just then, someone called out her name. It was Chung-woo. He mentioned that he had planned to drink alone but was surprised to run into her again. This situation was quite problematic for Min Kyung, especially since she had already had a drink. As Jung-woo approached and sat beside her, Tae-lee, observing the scene, questioned who he was. He didn't think he was her boyfriend. Jung-woo ordered a Purple Rain, a cocktail loved by women for its grape scent and slightly sweet sunset hue with a whiskey base. The waiter acknowledged the order. Jung-woo then offered it to Min Kyung, insisting that he had wanted to buy her a drink. He admitted that he had read all of her columns and knew she was a cocktail lover, always drinking at least 3 glasses whenever she visited a bar. Min Kyung felt nervous. She had forgotten that Jung-woo wasn't well aware of her habits. She decided it was best to drink quickly and leave. However, Jung-woo enthusiastically continued discussing cocktails. He explained how they were created by mixing various liquids such as alcohol, syrup, juices, and mixers. He elaborated on how cocktails with high sugar content had greater density, whereas those with high alcohol content were lighter. Min Kyung realized that he had done quite a bit of research. Just then, Jung-woo received a call. It was Hyun-sung, confirming if he was speaking to Hyun-sung. Jung-woo mentioned that Min Kyung was with him and asked if he had called out of concern for his little sister. He then inquired whether Hyun-sung was near the hotel, as he intended to take her there. Meanwhile, Min Kyung, feeling the effects of the alcohol, struggled with a headache. She wondered if Hyun-sung was already on his way. Realizing she needed to leave before he arrived, she stood up. She called out to Jung-woo, who was surprised that she had been right there while he was on the phone. He quickly apologized, but Min Kyung reassured him that there was nothing to worry about. Jung-woo pointed out that there was only one drink left and suggested she sip it slowly. However, Min Kyung, deciding that it would be best to finish it in one go, drank it down. Jung-woo remarked on how well she handled alcohol. Almost instantly, Min Kyung regretted her decision. Her vision blurred and dizziness set in. Jung-woo, noticing her unsteady state, grew concerned and asked if she was all right. Min Kyung, feeling uneasy, insisted that she should leave, but Jung-woo urged her to sit down for a moment, mentioning that Hyun-sung was on his way to pick her up. He gently grabbed her arm, asking again if she was okay. Min Kyung attempted to reassure him, telling him to go ahead without her. She knew she needed to get to her hotel room. This situation was becoming dangerous. Jung-woo, still concerned, insisted that she seemed quite intoxicated and should take a moment to rest. Min Kyung, however, refused, repeating that she was fine and urging him to leave first. At that moment, another person stepped forward, questioning Jung-woo's intentions. He asked why Jung-woo was forcing someone to stay when she clearly didn't want to. Jung-woo, startled, denied the accusation, claiming that it was all a misunderstanding. Tae-lee, witnessing the scene, questioned Jung-woo's words. He questioned if it wasn't what it seemed, then what exactly was happening. Min Kyung, struggling to stay conscious, recognized a familiar voice. The overwhelming dizziness and nausea made it difficult for her to process the situation. Tae-lee, still watching, stated that he had observed everything from the beginning. Jung-woo had pressured her to stay and drink against her will. He then demanded to know what his true intentions were. Jung-woo, taken aback, swore that he was not a pervert. In an attempt to clear any doubts, he hastily presented his business card. At that moment, Min-kyung stumbled forward, barely able to focus. As she whispered, she uttered the question, "Is it the executive director?" Tai Lee, upon noticing Min Kyung's exposed chest, became quite embarrassed and cursed under his breath before offering his Yun Senget for her to wear. As Min Kyung questioned whether he was the executive director, Tai Lee, puzzled, asked why she was bringing it up. Min Kyung, appearing heavily intoxicated, responded incoherently, mentioning something about briefing materials, making Tai Lee wonder if she had lost her mind. Apologizing, she insisted she would look for them immediately, while Tai Lee, frustrated, yelled at Jung-woo, demanding to know how much alcohol he had given her. Jung-woo, denying any wrongdoing, insisted he had done nothing. Meanwhile, Min Kyung murmured to herself about misplacing the documents. Jung-woo admitted they had been on a date and offered his coat, assuring Tai Lee that he was not as shameless as he might have assumed. Tai Lee, surprised, processed the fact that Kang Min Kyung had gone on a date with him. Jung-woo then pointed out that it was Tai Lee who had rudely interrupted them, questioning his right to intrude on their evening. Tai Lee, glaring, demanded to know who Jung-woo was, firmly stating that he was Kang Min Kyung's colleague. Jung-woo appeared troubled by the declaration. Min Kyung attempted to explain, but as the executive director's coat slipped off her shoulders, Tai Lee instinctively caught it. He remarked that he is going to lose his mind trying to give back the coat. As he unintentionally caught a glimpse of Min Kyung's body, she casually flicked her hair behind her and extended the coat toward him. Witnessing this, Tai Lee became petrified, his face turning completely red with embarrassment. Snapping at Min Kyung, he cursed under his breath, exclaiming that everyone was watching and demanding to know why she had consumed so much alcohol. Muttering that the place was filled with oddballs, he tried to make sense of the situation. Jung-woo, still perplexed, questioned Tai Lee's claim of being Min Kyung's co-worker, pointing out that she was actually Sia's closest friend and housemate. Suddenly, Hyun-sung arrived, declaring the statement about Kang Min Kyung being Sia's closest friend and housemate. Recognizing Hyun-sung, Jung-woo watched as he approached, appearing just as confused. Hyun-sung then directly addressed the situation, explaining what was happening. Observing everything, Tai Lee remained skeptical, trying to assess who Hyun-sung was. Hyun-sung then formally introduced himself, bowing and identifying himself as the legal advisor for TK Group. He admitted he had not expected to encounter Tai Lee under such circumstances. Meanwhile, Min Kyung, still in a daze, regained some awareness, noticing Hyun-sung's presence and questioning why he was there. Realizing that if Hyun-sung discovered the truth, Sia might get into trouble, she instinctively hid behind Tai Lee, grabbing his hand. Tai Lee, now even more confused, wondered what was happening, recalling that she had acted in a similar manner before and suspecting she might be feeling nervous again. Hyun-sung, addressing the executive director, stated that Kang Min Kyung appeared extremely drunk and offered to take her home. However, Tai Lee immediately intervened, insisting that she was his subordinate and that he could not entrust her to a stranger. He then demanded to know Hyun-sung's connection to Kang Min Kyung. After a brief pause, Hyun-sung clarified that they had been close childhood friends and assured him there was no need to worry. Addressing Min Kyung directly, he promised not to say anything to Seiya, though he scolded her for drinking excessively. Min Kyung, still slightly dazed, attempted to recall how much she had consumed, estimating it to be 3 glasses and some champagne. She then asked if Hyun-sung was really going to scold her for it. Tai Lee, disturbed by her demeanor, wondered what was going on and since when she had started making such expressions. Hyun-sung, turning back to the executive director, apologized for the trouble and promised to introduce himself properly at another time. Noticing the coat, he assumed it must belong to the executive director and proceeded to remove it from Min Kyung's shoulders, instructing her to return it. Before he could take it away, Tai Lee stopped him and insisted that Min Kyung wear it again. He then buttoned it up himself, instructing her to return it the next day. Hyun-sung, seemingly grateful, thanked Tai Lee for looking after her before turning to Min Kyung, stating that it was time to leave and that he would take her home. Hyun-sung closely, finding his behavior suspicious. However, Min Kyung resisted, expressing a desire to stay and relax, though she struggled to recall which floor her room was on. She mentioned taking the elevator, prompting Hyun-sung to offer to escort her to her room. Tai Li, upon realizing Hyun-song was planning to take her to her hotel room, immediately grabbed his hand, demanding to know why he was accompanying her when he was not her boyfriend. Finding the situation odd, he expressed his suspicions. In response, Hyun-song countered by questioning whether the executive director himself should be the one escorting her instead. He then stated that he saw no reason to assume there was anything between Kang Min-kyung and Tai Li. The next day, as Tae Lee woke up, quite half undressed, he recalled Min Kyung's face, questioning whether it had been a dream or reality. As he remained in a dazed state, he remembered bumping into assistant manager Kang the previous night. His thoughts lingered on what had happened after they had parted, as the man she referred to as Appa had escorted her to her hotel room. Thinking back to his own words, particularly his comment about the relationship between Min Kyung and him, he felt a wave of frustration before stopping himself, reminding himself that it was none of his business. Later that day at the office, Min Young greeted Tae Lee as usual, to which he responded with a simple acknowledgement. Sitting in the car, he observed that she seemed unaffected, assuming that she must have slept well since she showed no signs of a hangover. As Min Young proceeded with the usual briefing, he couldn't shake the feeling that she was looking at him. He found himself unwilling to meet her gaze, irritated by the sound of her voice. Everything about her was getting on his nerves, though he couldn't quite explain why. At the TK Group Tower, Min Kyung knocked on his office door before informing him that lunch was ready. Glancing at the door briefly, Tae Lee responded that he wouldn't be eating, explaining that he had no appetite. Additionally, he asked her to cancel all his appointments for the day, stating that he wasn't feeling well. Min Kyung acknowledged his request and left, her thoughts unsettled. She groaned at the thought that she had to return his gift, but distress clouded her mind. She wondered if she had lost her senses, questioning what she had done. The dilemma of whether to act as if nothing had happened or to apologize weighed on her. However, considering how Tae Lee had been avoiding her, she doubted he would want to see her, at least for the rest of the day. The embarrassment of the situation overwhelmed her. Later, as assistant Kim Chon drove Tae Lee, he inquired about their destination. Tae Lee simply instructed him to start driving. Watching the passing scenery, he fell into silence. Kim Chon, noticing his mood, suggested taking him to the riverside, believing the open, well-ventilated space would be refreshing. Tae Lee, sensing something in his tone, questioned whether he looked that bad. Kim Chon affirmed it, pointing out that Tae Lee always called him whenever something was weighing on his mind. That was precisely why he wanted to take him somewhere relaxing. Tae Lee considered how quickly Kim Chon picked up on things. Kim Chon then mentioned that assistant manager Min Kyung had once said there was nothing like a run by the river to clear one's thoughts. Tae Lee, caught off guard, was surprised to hear her name, questioning if that was her exercise routine. Kim Chon confirmed that it was one of her hobbies, adding that she often ran up to 10 km a day. Tae Lee found it hard to believe that she managed to make time for workouts despite her busy schedule. His mind unintentionally wandered to the image of her well-toned physique, causing him to feel embarrassed. Frustrated with himself, he snapped at Kim Chun, demanding that he drive quietly instead of talking so much, to which Kim Chun quickly apologized. At dawn, back at Tae Lee's house, his younger sister Soo-jin casually questioned him about his sudden attendance at family meals. She pointed out that he had always claimed to be too busy to join them. Tae Lee, unfazed, asked why she was making it sound as though he was the only one who had been absent. The conversation soon shifted as Tae-jun mentioned having gone to Songbek-cha. Tae Lee asks about the reason, to which Tae-jun explained that he was getting engaged to Woo-kyung and had needed to meet the chairman. Soo-jin praised him, exclaiming that he was incredibly cool. Tae Lee, unimpressed, remarked that she seemed to find everything cool. Soo-jin continued excitedly, declaring that it was amazing. TK Electronics director had chosen his woman honestly, having fallen deeply in love. She referenced a magazine article that had called Tae-jun a romantic man, claiming that such men were rare in today's world. Tae Lee dryly commented that it was truly a love story fit for this century. Soo-jin shifting her focus to Tae Lee, who had spent his entire life working without ever being in a relationship. But she playfully questioned what they should do with him, suggesting that he must be burning with frustration inside. Tae Lee groaned, irritated by her teasing, suspecting that she had come just to get on his nerves. Soo-jin, laughing it off, told him not to take it seriously. Tae Lee dismissed the conversation, deciding to step out for some fresh air. Before leaving, he called for Tae-jun, suggesting that they talk for a moment. Outside, the summer heat lingered in the air. As Tae-jun took a sip of alcohol, some dribbled onto his shirt. Tae-lee, watching him, felt uneasy. Tae-jun remained oblivious, seemingly unbothered by the burning sensation that should have accompanied the strong liquor. Casually, Tae-jun mentioned that Soo-jin had told him something interesting. She had claimed that women found it attractive when a man drank like that. Tae-lee, baffled, questioned whether he had gone mad. Tae-jun, brushing it off, shifted the conversation, noting that it was unusual for the executive director to be the one calling him first. He asked if something was wrong. Tae-lee, maintaining a serious tone, stated that there was a reason. Without hesitation, he brought up assistant manager King, requesting that Tae-jun take her back to his team. As the question was posed about her performance, Tae-jun stated that she was doing an excellent job, which Tae-lee attempted to deny. However, he was questioned as to why he was deflecting the topic. Instead of pressing further, Tae-jun mentioned that his team already had plenty of capable staff and he believed that assistant manager Kang was performing well in her current role. As Tae-lee continued to refute the claim, Tae-jun further added that he had no reason to want to take her back to his team, which caused Tae-lee to pause. Tae-lee remarked that both of them were aware that she was too talented to remain in a secretary position. Tae-jun acknowledged that he had known this from the beginning, yet he had refrained from requesting her transfer until that moment. He then questioned whether there might be another reason behind Tae-lee's reluctance. The next morning, Soo-jin was at Tae-lee's apartment, yelling his name and demanding that he open the door immediately. Once inside, she presented him with an article, an exclusive report about the TK Group's eldest son Tae-lee being in a romantic relationship. The article was accompanied by photos of him with Min Kyung. It was stated that he had been spotted with an unidentified woman, and since he had always kept his personal life private, the news of him being in close proximity to an ordinary woman at a hotel bar had attracted significant public attention. Soo-jin giggled while mocking him, questioning what was happening. Observing the situation, Tae-lee was left stunned, muttering in disbelief as he questioned the legitimacy of the article. Soo-jin, in a loud voice, reiterated the news, emphasizing that TK Group's Tae-lee had been seen with an unknown woman. She continued to mock him, reading from the article that described him as the executive director of TKC&T, known for fiercely protecting his private life, now making headlines for being seen in close proximity to an ordinary woman at all. Tae-lee was visibly taken aback, and before he could respond, Soo-jin pressed him further, questioning the identity of the woman who had managed to make him falter. As he attempted to explain, Soo-jin dismissed his words, insisting that she would simply have to figure it out herself. She then confidently speculated that the woman in question was Kang Min Kyung. Tae-lee, overwhelmed with shock, questioned how she had reached that conclusion. To his dismay, Soo-jin revealed that she had not been certain. It had merely been a guess, but his reaction had confirmed her suspicions, causing him to cry out in frustration. Soo-jin pointed out that she had never seen him hugging a girl before. As he tried to refute the claim, asking what she meant by hugging, she reminded him that he typically reacted strongly even to minor physical contact. Finding the situation amusing, she enthusiastically commented on how incredible it was, further teasing him by suggesting that this could be the beginning of an office-born romance. Tae-lee was quick to deny any romantic involvement, insisting that there was a reasonable explanation for everything. However, Soo-jin dismissed his protests, claiming that his life needed some romance and that he should consider dating someone, anyone. She continued to press him, questioning when he planned to start dating. Tae-lee, growing frustrated, insisted that she should respect his personal space and talk to him without invading it. Soo-jin, unwilling to back down, speculated whether he was considering a political marriage, as the elders had suggested, to secure harmony between TK Group and the Choi family in order to be recognized as the true successor of TK. She pointed out that he had lived his entire life adhering to the law of loyalty. Tae-lee, now exasperated, shouted that it was not true. Struggling to find the right words, he attempted to explain that he had no thoughts about marriage. Soo-jin, however, was not convinced and continued to probe, suggesting that he simply did not want to date just anyone. After a brief pause, he, with visible embarrassment, declared that he intended to date only the woman he fell for at first sight. Sujin was left completely astounded by his words. She reacted dramatically, exclaiming that his declaration was astonishing, proclaiming that the greatest pure-hearted man of their time stood before her. Tae-lee, now fully flustered, yelled at her to show some respect, reminding her that she had been the one who had asked in the first place. As his frustration grew, he demanded that she hand over her allowance card. Sujin, laughing, dismissed his demand, stating that they were already submitting too much. Before leaving, she playfully expressed her support for his love life and thanked him for the allowance, leaving Tae-lee fuming. Unable to contain his embarrassment, he slapped his forehead, feeling too humiliated to face himself. The scene shifted as Min-kyung bowed deeply, expressing her sincere apologies for the significant damage caused to the executive director due to her personal matters. Tae-lee acknowledged that an article had indeed been written about the incident, but he assured her that she did not need to apologize so profusely. He admitted that he was also partly responsible for getting entangled in her personal affairs. However, Min-kyung argued that the situation was a result of her own negligence as his secretary. She insisted that it was her duty to prevent such incidents and was deeply ashamed of her failure to stop the spread of false, disorderly, and malicious reports. With a determined expression, she vowed to do everything in her power to prevent any further harm to the executive director's reputation. Tae-lee, somewhat surprised by her resolute stance, hesitated before assuring her that it was truly okay and asked her to stop dwelling on the matter. Shifting the conversation, he brought up another meeting she had scheduled. Min-kyung promptly confirmed that there was an external meeting with the construction company. Tae-lee, acknowledging the arrangement, suggested they proceed as planned, to which Min-kyung responded by stating that she would call for the car. As they boarded the elevator, Tae-lee found himself lost in thought. He questioned whether it had been necessary for her to bow so deeply in apology. He considered that perhaps she had been acting purely out of professionalism. After all, it was her job to manage such situations. He reminded himself that caring for Kang Min-kyung was simply another responsibility he had to handle. She was merely fulfilling her duties as his secretary. As the elevator doors opened, Tae-lee found himself momentarily distracted by his thoughts, wondering what exactly had been going through his mind. Stepping out of the elevator, he was immediately met with a blinding flurry of camera flashes. Paparazzi and reporters swarmed him, shouting questions and taking numerous photos. Overwhelmed by the sudden chaos, he felt an intense wave of nausea wash over him. Just as he felt as though he might collapse, a familiar voice cut through the noise, calling out his name. Min-kyung's concerned voice reached him just as he was on the verge of losing control. As Min-kyung observed that his face appeared pale, his breathing seemed shallow, and he looked visibly nervous, she wondered if it could be a panic attack. She questioned why reporters were present at a time like this while barely managing to support him. A car suddenly dashed in between them as assistant Kim Chun urged her to get in. As soon as they entered the vehicle and sped away, Min-kyung called out to him, asking if he was okay. Tae-lee, feeling an overwhelming heaviness, struggled to hear anything, his breath growing more labored before he eventually lost consciousness on Min-kyung's lap. Flashes of memories resurfaced as Tae-lee recalled someone calling out to him, insisting that the TK group belonged to him and that all eyes were on him. A series of fragmented images and articles about him as the next successor flooded his mind. His daily life had always demanded maintaining perfect posture, never lowering his guard, and constantly reminding himself that he was the face of TK's future. He remembered a photographer instructing him to smile as another camera flash illuminated the scene. Numerous voices echoed in his head, urging him to wake up. Regaining consciousness, Tae-lee found himself in a hospital, realizing he had blacked out. He questioned the reason, thinking he had already overcome such episodes. However, recalling Min-kyung's face, he wondered if Kang Min-kyung had truly been there. Turning his head, he noticed her dozing off on the sofa. He speculated whether she had stayed by his side all this time. Glancing at the watch, he noted that she had not even left for work despite how late it was, which explained her exhaustion. Min-kyung stirred, grumbling softly as she awoke to find Tae-lee looking at her. Immediately turning to him, she instructed him to lie back down, insisting that he should not be up yet. Though Tae-lee assured her he felt fine, Min-kyung remained firm, urging him to sit instead. He then suggested that she leave, acknowledging that she must be tired, but she refused, stating she would not do so. She insisted on taking taking responsibility for not managing the executive director's condition in advance, which was why she had voluntarily stayed. Determined, she informed him that she had kept a few meals aside for him over the past few days, and would only leave after confirming that he had eaten. Surprised by her persistence, Tae-lee questioned why she felt the need to do so, arguing that he was not a child. However, Min-kyung remained insistent, advising him to take a moment before accepting the meal she had prepared. She admitted it might not suit his taste, but made it clear that he had to finish it regardless. She also assured him that she had handled the day's schedule, eliminating any need for concern. Taking a brief pause, Tae-lee expressed his gratitude, but before he could say more, the sound of Min-kyung's stomach growling broke the silence. Amused, Tae-lee chuckled while Min-kyung flushed with embarrassment. Without hesitation, Tae-lee instructed her to bring a plate for herself, stating that he would not eat unless she did. As she retrieved her portion, he casually remarked that he had once assumed she was like a robot, catching her off guard. He elaborated that seeing her eat in such a relaxed manner proved she had a human side. Flustered, Min-kyung immediately attempted to correct her behavior, but Tae-lee quickly clarified that he had not meant it negatively. After a brief silence, Tae-lee shared that the first time he had collapsed was when he turned 20. His father had always been strict, emphasizing that he had to be perfect and composed at all times. With reporters constantly watching, waiting for any mistake, he had to be doubly cautious. He understood the reasons behind it. His words, his actions, everything he did carried weight, and he could not afford to tarnish the company's image. Journalists followed his every move, anticipating his failure. Though he had convinced himself he had grown accustomed to the blinding flashes, in reality he had not. One day, during a family photo session, he had collapsed, just as he had now. With a slight smile, he advised Min-kyung to relax, suggesting that she should not be so tense all the time. Acknowledging that he had spoken at length, he encouraged her to finish her meal. As she listened, Min-kyung silently reflected, realizing that he had endured far more hardship than she had previously imagined. Before leaving, Min-kyung informed him that she would prepare for the video meeting in the morning and return by 8 a.m. Frowning, Tae-lee pointed out that it was already quite late and questioned whether arriving at work by 8 a.m. was too early. Min-kyung, however, reminded him that the meeting had already been postponed once the previous day, and delaying it further would be problematic. Reassuring him that most of the necessary data had already been prepared, she told him not to worry. As she prepared to leave, Tae-lee stopped her, noting that work would begin in just a few hours, and suggesting that she stay there for the night instead. As Tae-lee suddenly felt jitters, he began questioning whether he had lost his mind and what kind of nonsense he had just blurted out. Before he could process it further, Min-kyung called out to him, addressing him as the executive director and inquiring whether there was something he had wanted to say. However, Tae-lee immediately denied it, insisting that she forget whatever had just happened and go home. Without questioning him further, Min-kyung excused herself and moved out of the room. Meanwhile, Tae-lee remained frozen in place, cursing himself under his breath. Scratching his hair in frustration, he wondered what was wrong with him. He thinks, did he hit his head too hard when he passed out? Screaming inwardly, he struggled to make sense of his own actions. The scene shifted to the following morning as Tae-lee woke up, stretching slightly before realizing that, despite having had a full night's rest, he still felt utterly drained. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts, and Min-kyung entered, greeting him as she approached. Without wasting time, she informed him about the upcoming video call concerning business matters. The meeting was scheduled to examine the revised plan, and discussions regarding the contract terms would follow after reviewing the business feasibility. Tae-lee listened as Min-kyung offered to relay the necessary details, all while he silently speculated about her exhaustion. Though she had likely overexerted herself, she showed no visible signs of fatigue. This was precisely why she was known as Kang Min-kyung, always composed, always reliable. In contrast, he found himself acting unlike his usual self. He couldn't deny it, he had indeed spoken a lot of nonsense the previous night. Blaming it on his condition, he dismissed it as an unusually emotional day. Min-kyung called out to Tae-lee once more, informing him that the morning schedule had been successfully completed. She also mentioned that she had cleared the afternoon schedule, taking into consideration the executive director's physical condition. Appreciating her efforts, Tae-lee thanked her. A sudden knock on the door disrupted disrupted the moment and Sujin entered, carrying a bouquet of flowers. Glancing at her in disbelief, Tae-lee pointed toward her, unable to hide his shock as he questioned why she was there. Sujin, unfazed by his reaction, explained that since her brother had been hospitalized after collapsing, their mother had sent the flowers for him. Tae-lee immediately became concerned, asking if their mother was aware of the situation. Sujin, with a mischievous glint in her eyes, confirmed his fears, stating that he was in big trouble as mom had even gone to the US to buy him medicine. This revelation left Tae-lee utterly speechless. Observing his reaction, Min-kyung thought about how, despite everything, it was nice to have a close family connection. Just as the thought crossed his mind, Sujin approached Min-kyung, addressing her directly. She confidently identified her as Assistant Manager Kang, prompting Min-kyung to confirm her identity and politely greet her as the Executive Director's secretary. Sujin, seemingly pleased, remarked that she had met Min-kyung before, recalling how she had won first place in the company's new recruit competition. Praising her as impressive, Sujin expressed her admiration. Embarrassed by the unexpected compliment, Min-kyung downplayed it, stating that she was merely flattered. Before the conversation could continue, Tae-lee interjected, calling out to Sujin and telling her she had no reason to be there any longer. He urged her to stop spouting nonsense and leave. However, Sujin, ignoring his protest, grabbed his arm and questioned what his problem was. Insisting that she had hardly done anything wrong, she asked him to step aside and talk with her for a moment. Tae-lee, irritated by her persistence, asked what she intended to say. Leaning in, Sujin whispered something unexpected. She offered to help him. Tae-lee, stunned by her words, immediately questioned why he would need her assistance. Smirking, Sujin teasingly asked whether she should simply tell Min-kyung everything instead. Her words made Tae-lee frown, his suspicion growing as he demanded to know what she was planning. Ignoring his question, Sujin turned to Min-kyung and casually suggested that they go buy coffee together, emphasizing that the patient should remain in his hospital room. Min-kyung, seeing no reason to refuse, agreed and followed Sujin outside. As they walked, Sujin spoke up, acknowledging that Min-kyung must have been surprised the previous day. Min-kyung admitted that she had not expected the executive director to collapse like that, but was relieved to see that he seemed to be recovering well. Sujin, however, expressed her own concerns, stating that it was unusual for her brother to collapse. She explained that as far back as she could remember, she had never seen him take a proper break, so it was hardly surprising that his body had finally given in. Continuing the conversation, Sujin revealed details about their family history. She explained that their father had always been ambitious, expecting Tae-lee to act and present himself as the perfect successor. Their father had been driven by greed, but his capabilities had never been enough to match his ambitions. As a result, their grandfather had disowned him long ago. However, through Tae-lee, their father had attempted to restore his own position within TK Group. In his relentless pursuit of their father's approval and their grandfather's recognition, Tae-lee had pushed himself to extreme lengths. However, everything had changed when he turned 20, because that was when Kang Tae-jun had appeared. Sujin proceeded to mention Tae-jun, noting that she was well aware of his story. Min-kyung, recalling that it had been a widely discussed topic at the time, confirmed that she knew quite a bit about it. She remembered that Tae Se-hee, the youngest daughter of the TK Group chairman, had once fallen in love with an unknown volleyball player and had lived in hiding after fleeing to the United States. 2 decades later, after keeping her life a secret, the existence of her son had been revealed, along with the tragic news of her passing. Expanding on the story, Sujin disclosed that their grandfather had finally accepted Tae-jun as his grandson after her aunt's passing. Not only that, but Mr. Tae had even granted him the family name. To Tae-lee, who had long believed himself to be the only rightful successor to TK Group, this revelation had come as a massive shock. He had devoted his entire youth to ensuring that he would never be surpassed by Tae-jun, who was the same age as him. Yet, due to a mistake made by their father, half of the company had ultimately been handed over to Tae-jun. To Tae-lee, it must have felt as though his entire life had been turned upside down. Hearing all of this, Min-kyung found herself reflecting on how she had always perceived Tae-lee as nothing more than a self-centered crown prince. Never had she imagined him being in such a difficult position. Sujin, noticing her expression, chuckled and pointed out that, to make matters worse, Tae-lee had not even been given time to process any of it. The moment he had turned 20, he had been thrust into the business world without a break, facing overwhelming pressure from all sides. Min Kyung, feeling a newfound sense of sympathy, admitted that she felt sorry for him. Sujin in turn grasped Min Kyung's hands and expressed her relief that she was by her brother's side. Smiling warmly, she affectionately addressed her as Min Kyung Uni, asking if she could continue calling her that. Seeing Sujin's bright, eager eyes, Min Kyung was unable to refuse. She reminded her so much of her own younger siblings. Sujin then hugged Min Kyung, expressing her frustration. She worried about her brother, lamenting that even when given the chance to rest, he was incapable of doing so. Instead, he remained glued to his work, even from his hospital bed. She tearfully asked what she could possibly do to help him relax. Moved by her sincerity, Min Kyung gently patted Sujin's back, assuring her that there was no need to cry. Seeing Sujin's teary eyes, Min Kyung found herself unable to resist, and with determination, she vowed to find a solution. Delighted, Sujin beamed and praised her, declaring that she was truly the best. The scene shifted as assistant Kim Chon enthusiastically proclaimed that having fun was his specialty. Sitting in the car, Tae-lee, bewildered, questioned why they had suddenly decided to go to Gangwon-do. Min Kyung, unfazed, explained that proper rest not only aided recovery but also enhanced productivity and creativity, which in turn directly influenced work performance. As his assistant, she was determined to ensure his full recovery. Though Tae-lee grumbled that simply sleeping in for a few days would have sufficed, Min Kyung could tell he was secretly excited. She beamed at his face, thinking maybe she was pushing him too hard. Smiling, she resolved to make sure this vacation went perfectly. As the driver, Kim Chon had taken on multiple responsibilities over the years. He had served as the president of his elementary, middle, and high school entertainment clubs, acted as the representative of Jogdangha, and even led the university's automotive engineering department's self-mid automotive club. Due to his extensive involvement and dedication, Sujin had acknowledged his consistent efforts, which ultimately led her to appoint him as the driver for the trip. In his role as assistant, Kim Chon appeared genuinely excited, especially since he had gone out of his way to book excellent accommodations for everyone. Min Kyung expressed her appreciation, thanking him for recognizing the importance of their comfort. As they set off, Tae-lee curiously asked how far they were actually going, to which Sujin casually remarked that the fewer the people they were, the better the experience tended to be. Eventually, the group arrived at Freedom Pension, a healing retreat with top-tier rooms and a glowing reputation based on online reviews. The check-in had gone smoothly, and the place had looked just as impressive in person as it had in the pictures. Kim Chon eagerly pointed out the ladies' room and the men's room, proudly explaining that both rooms were incredibly spacious, clearly well designed for relaxation. The surrounding natural scenery had only enhanced the atmosphere, causing Tae-lee to reflect on the moment. He quietly noted that the four of them would be sleeping there, trying to process everything as it settled in. Sujin seemed slightly confused, questioning why there were only 2 rooms for 4 people. Kim Chon assured her that it was more than enough space, especially considering the number of guests, and then casually asked whether they should begin unpacking. Tae-lee, however, had begun feeling uneasy about the arrangements. The idea of sharing a room hadn't sat well with him, and he couldn't believe that he was actually going to be sleeping beside someone else. He already anticipated that he wouldn't be able to rest properly with someone so close by. Meanwhile, in the next room, Sujin called out to Min Kyung, questioning whether that was all she had packed. Min Kyung calmly affirmed that she had brought only what was necessary to stay comfortable. Sujin stated that it had been a long time since she had been on vacation, adding that she intended to make sure she looked the part. Kim Chan, playing the part of the ever-prepared assistant, had called out for the ladies, asking if they were ready. Sujin had responded for both of them, confirming that they were on their way. As the women came downstairs, Sujin appeared alongside Min Kyung, both of them dressed stylishly for the outing. Sujin affirmed that they should get going. Upon seeing Min Kyung in a short skirt, Tae-lee's face had turned red from embarrassment. With visible discomfort, he asked why she had chosen to dress like that. Soojin simply replied that they were on vacation, brushing off his concern. She then playfully teased Tae-lee, noting out loud how amazing Min Kyung's figure was. Tae-lee, clearly flustered, growled and scolded Soojin, urging her to stop making such strange comments as they all moved out together. Once they had stepped outside, Min Kyung brought up the idea of forming groups due to limited time. She casually suggested that she would go grocery shopping with driver Kim Chun and encouraged Tae-lee to explore the area and see if there were any fun places nearby. She then cheerfully waved him off before departing with Kim Chun. As she left, Min Kyung added that she would be back after scouting the surrounding area. Tae-lee quietly stated that they could have just gone together, feeling a bit left out. Later, while walking through the forest, Min Young turned to ask whether Tae-lee liked the place. He responded honestly, saying he didn't really know, since he hadn't been there much before. Min Young then reminisced, mentioning how there had once been a mountain near her childhood home that looked quite similar. It had become a favorite spot for her and her friends, who would often play there, collecting insects, picking flowers, and running under the summer sun. She admitted that the scent of the forest had brought back those memories. Tae-lee commented that it sounded like a beautiful memory, to which Min Kyung nodded in agreement. At one point, Min Kyung called Tae-lee's attention to a nearby patch of ripe mountain raspberries. She took a bite of one and assured him it was sweet and delicious. As she offered him one, Tae-lee, seeing her bright smile, got a little embarrassed as he accepted without thinking, taking a bite himself. However, after a moment, his expression soured. He grumbled that it was bitter and extremely sour. Min Kyung had laughed, realizing that she had accidentally handed him an unripe one. After that, they spent quite a bit of time enjoying the forest, and Tae-lee even made a flower ring for her. Sitting beside her, Tae-lee found himself reflecting on how he had never felt this way before. Min Kyung, watching him, thought that she had never seen the executive director wear such a relaxed expression, thinking that he truly seemed to be enjoying himself for once. Min Kyung reminded him of something he had said earlier, something about relaxing his shoulders and living a little. She thought this trip might be the perfect opportunity for both her and the executive director to unwind. She admitted to feeling happy when he agreed to join them, to which Tae-lee muttered that he had never visited a place like this before. After a brief pause, he quietly confessed that he liked it. At that moment, raindrops began to fall. Min Kyung looked up, noting aloud that it was starting to rain. As the rain quickly intensified, Tae-lee suggested they return. They both agreed and started to run back. While rushing along the path, Tae-lee noticed how slippery it had become. He turned to Min Kyung and warned her to watch her step. She acknowledged him but appeared to struggle on the wet ground. Just as she was about to slip, Tae-lee instinctively reached out and caught her, asking her to hold his hand. She gratefully accepted, thanking him in the process. As they ran across the open field, Tae-lee had cursed under his breath, feeling as though he was losing control. Though it wasn't summer, he couldn't understand why the rain had poured so heavily. Still, with Min Kyung's hand in his, he continued running through the rain. While running through the rain, Min Kyung and Tae-lee reached a small bus stop. Both were quite drenched, and Tae-lee turned his attention toward Min Kyung, noticing how soaked she had become. As Min Kyung glanced back, she noticed Tae-lee taking off his upper garment, which he soaked dry, and wrapping it around her. He mentioned that driver Kim Chun would arrive shortly, and urged her to use it to stay warm until then. Min Kyung felt touched by the gesture. Seeing Tae-lee's shirt clinging to him and his face slightly flushed quite red, she remarked that he looked like the one who needed to stay warm. As she extended her hand toward him, she asked if he was all right. Tae-lee turned his face away, clearly embarrassed, and affirmed that he was perfectly fine. He added that he might only be a bit warm from running all the way. Min Kyung, however, pointed out that his face was beet red. She raised her arm, placing it on his forehead, and claimed he might have a fever, warning that they would be in trouble if he caught a cold. Tae-lee, flustered by the sudden closeness, turned away and repeated that he was fine. Min Kyung disagreed, saying it didn't seem that way. While Tae-lee was having a hard time thinking, something might have made him feel sick, and perhaps he felt like throwing up. Just then, a car pulled up with a screech, and Soojin shouted, asking what they were doing out there, completely soaked, and urged them to get in quickly. Once inside the car, they explained that the rain had started suddenly and it hadn't been in the forecast. One of them remarked that it must have come as a surprise. Soojin then questioned why they had come all the way out here, as if the situation had occurred randomly. As the car moved forward, a speed bump was announced. At that moment, Tae Lee's leg accidentally brushed against Min Kyung's. Tae Lee felt quite embarrassed, but Min Kyung was too busy chatting to notice. The scene shifted to a hotel, where Tae Lee and Min Kyung were preparing food together. Tae Lee occasionally glanced at her. After grilling the meat, he stayed quiet while Min Kyung seemed to enjoy spending time with Soo Jin, laughing and smiling along with everyone. Later that night, Tae Lee gazed at the moon, holding a withered flower in his hand. Suddenly, Min Kyung called out to him from behind. Startled, he quickly hid the flower in his pocket. She said she had been looking for him and asked why he was there alone. He explained that he just wanted to get some fresh air, and they sat together. Min Kyung said she had a lot of fun that day and hadn't realized how much she needed it, having worked non-stop. Now that they were all together enjoying themselves, she felt she had been moving forward without looking back. Tae Lee paused, then admitted he understood. He stated that he had been living so intensely that he feared he might be holding her back. Min Kyung, after a brief silence, disagreed. She explained that when she was younger, she had excelled in everything because she was smart. She did well in her studies and started working immediately after graduating college due to her family's financial situation. She believed she could simply keep going forward. Tae Lee responded, affirming that she had indeed done well. Min Kyung added that she could do even better as the assistant to the executive director. She expressed her determination to support him until he reached the top of the TK group, vowing to stay by his side and give her all. She promised to continue delivering good results. Tae Lee turned to her and encouraged her to do it, which made her smile. Later that night, Min Kyung's phone rang. She mentioned it was her phone and asked for a moment. Tae Lee told her not to worry and to answer the call. She stepped away and picked it up. Tae Lee, still nearby, unintentionally overheard the conversation. Min Kyung was telling Hyunsung that she was working. The softness in her voice left Tae Lee unsettled, as Hyunsung questioned what she was doing, to which Min Kyung simply replied that she was working, greatly taking him aback. He froze in his place. In a quiet tone, she whispered that she had come to a workshop with a colleague from the company. After that, Tae Lee moved out of his place. Afterwards, when Tae Lee returned, a soft smile veiled his cold demeanor. His cutting remarks, delivered in a gentle tone, and the inherent arrogance which even strict manners and upright posture couldn't conceal, made it clear he was someone who had ruled for a lifetime. The crown prince of TK Group carried that aura. Min Kyung hurried over to him, informing him that she would now report his next schedule. She mentioned a dinner appointment scheduled with Mr. Kim Jong, the CEO of a company, at 5:00 p.m. After dinner, there was a spa appointment booked at 8:00 p.m. As Tae Lee nodded in acknowledgement, Min Kyung noticed something different about him. Ever since their return from the trip, he had been acting like a completely different person. His attitude had become 10 times colder than the past version of himself. As she recalled his earlier actions and smile on the trip, she questioned whether everything that happened during the trip had been her imagination, but she quickly denied that, thinking Tae Lee had always been like this underneath. The scene shifted toward the car, where Tae Lee was reviewing and signing documents. As he glanced at Min Kyung, she addressed him formally as the executive director. When she turned to him, she said she would begin the day's briefing, for which he gave his approval. While Tae Lee listened, Min Kyung reported that there was a business meeting scheduled at headquarters at 10:00 a.m. and another one at 12:00 p.m. She added that he would be having lunch with Mr. Lee Jong, the CEO of a corporation. As she continued, Tae Lee thought she had been working really hard. He recalled the vacation conversation she had with Hyun Sung, where she mentioned she was working. Thinking that she seemed to love working so much, Tae Lee decided he would allow her to do it endlessly without hesitation. He handed her a pile of documents, asking her to organize them all before tomorrow's meeting. Every single one of them. Min Kyung acknowledged the task with a firm nod. Later, when she reported back with the prepared documents, Tae Lee told her that the readability wasn't quite right and asked her to reorganize them properly and return with an improved version. She agreed, promising she would fix it better. After reworking them, she brought the files again. This time, Tae Lee stated that on second thought the original format had been better and instructed her to revert to the unedited version. Min Kyung simply affirmed once more and went back to do it. Despite all the revisions and the numerous tasks he had thrown at her over the past week, there had been no fluctuation in Min Kyung's voice or attitude. Tae-lee knew she hadn't changed since the day they met, yet that unshakable calmness only made him grit his teeth in frustration. Later, Min Kyung knocked on his door to report that dinner had been arranged from the restaurant. She explained that she had ordered mushroom risotto and wheatgrass juice, thinking it might be more convenient for him than a salad. Tae-lee noticed it immediately. It was his favorite dish from the restaurant he frequented, thinking, as expected, it was perfect. He took a bite, chewed it slowly, and then set the spoon down, clearly trying to stall her. He asked if this had been Director Kang's preference and suggested she should eat it herself. He also added coldly that he didn't eat things like wheatgrass juice. Without reacting, Min Kyung stared at him and replied that she had prepared other dishes just in case. She served abalone porridge, explaining that it had been specially ordered from El Hotel, and politely asked him to enjoy the meal. Tae-lee, barely able to hold back his anger, thought to himself that it was absolutely delicious, and that fact made him even angrier. He cursed her silently for being so considerate. That night, as Tae-lee opened the door, he saw Min Kyung. She asked if he was heading out and offered to have the car prepared, but Tae-lee paused and was shocked by the previous dish. He asked what she was eating. Min Kyung reminded him that he had just told her it was Director Kang's preference, so she should eat it. Taken aback, Tae-lee quickly denied that it was what he meant. She asked if he intended to eat it and whether she should reorder it, to which Tae-lee snapped that he had already eaten abalone porridge. He cursed her internally, wondering if she was doing it on purpose just to provoke him. Min Kyung replied calmly that she had only chosen to eat there to save time, as she had a lot of work to finish that night. This seemed to depress Tae-lee even further. He called out to her, asking if she was sure it was okay for her to eat it. Min Kyung responded by saying that she always washed the spoons, so there was no need for him to worry. Tae-lee, completely embarrassed, thought she was really like that person. It was driving him mad. He grabbed a glass and gulped it all down in one go. Min Kyung, surprised, reminded him that she had already drunk from that glass. Tae-lee paused and then wiped his mouth with a tissue. He asked why it even mattered. After all, it was originally his. He questioned her again about whether she intended to drink it and whether she wanted him to reorder it, stating that he would leave now. Before walking away, he glanced at her computer screen and mentioned that she had done a good job organizing the slides. As he got closer to her, he leaned in slightly and whispered that she had done well, then turned and walked out. After he stepped away, Tae-lee paused outside the door and suddenly burst into laughter. He thought she must have felt the tension, and seeing her face flushed like that, he believed she looked great. Still giggling, he walked off, unable to stop the laugh forming because of her face. Afterwards, the scene opened with Tae-lee cursing himself quietly, striking his shoes against the floor out of frustration as it was the final day. Min Kyung approached, asking if he was there, and reminded him that they should get going. As they entered the meeting room, Min Kyung greeted the employees and asked if they had been waiting long. They replied that they hadn't, and one of them greeted the executive director politely. The man introduced himself as Min Ji-ho, a lawyer and legal advisor for the Baekhyang Resort M&A project. Another man stepped forward and introduced himself too. He introduced himself as Lee Hunsong, a lawyer at M&P. At that moment, Tae-lee greeted Hunsong. He smiled lightly and said it was nice to see them again, and Hunsong returned the greeting politely. As the person whom Min Kyung calls Hunsong Appa, the unfortunate guy was starting at T. Hunsong was officially starting today at TK Group, joining the Baekhyang Resort Acquisition and Merger Project, which had already been progressing steadily. A task force had been set up in the resort business division specifically for the M&A, but what irritated him the most was that he had been sent, of all people, questioning why that guy. Tae-lee frowned, as out of every law firm they could have chosen, he questioned why it had to be that one, thinking, why did they assign someone like Hyun Sung to this particular project? It didn't make sense to him, and the more he thought about it, the more annoyed he felt. Later at the tower, Min Kyung returned to her usual routine, reporting to Tae-lee and handling a heavy workload after their brief vacation. She didn't complain, even though the work ranged from a massive workload after a short but dreamy vacation to bustling secretarial tasks to supporting the TF team. There was no break, but Min Kyung motivated herself that she is Kang Min Kyung and she can do it. Tae-lee sat at his desk, typing casually on his keyboard. Thoughts of Min Kyung's exhausted expression crossed his mind. He thought that she looked more worn out than usual lately. He wondered if he was being too harsh on her, but then again he reminded himself he was the boss. It was normal for him to assign tasks, and maybe he was just overthinking it. He stood up and walked out, but didn't see Min Kyung anywhere. He asked himself where she had gone and stepped toward her desk. Her things were scattered around, not as neatly arranged as usual. He looked at the mess and muttered under his breath, wondering if she had even been eating properly. He called her a fool in frustration and said that if she was having a hard time, she should have said so. He headed to another part of the office. Some employees looked surprised to see him and asked what brought him there. Tae-lee simply said he stopped by. Trying to impress him, the employees praised his leadership. They said his attention to detail had boosted team morale and mentioned how they had been receiving clear messages through Secretary Min Kyung. They added that Min Kyung was exceptional. She seemed to understand everything, even while being busy with her personal life. They admired how quickly she handled all the tasks. Tae-lee smiled lightly and agreed. He said she was doing an excellent job as a secretary. Then he asked them where she was. One employee said that she was currently with the TF. Hearing that, Tae-lee turned away. His expression darkened as he was quite irritated, thinking, why was she with the TF team? Without saying anything more, he walked out. At the TF team's area, the Baekhyang Resort M&A task force was in action. Min Kyung was there, working with Hyun Song and Min Ji-ho. Tae-lee peered in and immediately felt more annoyed. The three of them seemed too comfortable with one another, and it bothered him. He cursed internally as he opened the door. The people in the room turned, surprised to see him there. Min Kyung greeted him right away, as Tae-lee asked if she was busy. Min Kyung answered calmly, saying she had just finished delivering some documents. Min Ji-ho quickly joined in the conversation. He confronted Tae-lee, thanking Min Kyung, and said she had been a huge help. He mentioned how he had requested some documents earlier and Min Kyung had delivered a flawless report. Even the auditors were impressed. He explained that thanks to her, they had received great support. Tae-lee affirmed that Assistant Manager Kang was highly capable, saying that Min Kyung still managed everything on her end so efficiently. He then asked Min Kyung if she had compiled the status of the overseas construction contract and whether there was any progress with the expansion project in Saudi Arabia. Min Kyung replied that the data had been collected and that the relevant department was still working on the update. She promised to have it ready for him by 3:00 that day. Tae-lee frowned slightly and questioned whether she even understood what the priority was in that situation. Min Kyung paused briefly before answering that she would make sure it was done. Hyun Sung, seeing everything, simply watched this scene. Tae-lee turned his attention to Hyun Sung and called him out. Tae-lee said that tasks like this should be organized by Hyun Sung. After all, that was the reason he was hired. He asked sharply whether the secretary for the executive director of the trading department was a friend of Hyun Sung's. Hyun Sung looked slightly taken aback and apologized. He admitted that he had been careless and that the responsibility was his and made an inconvenience to his work. Tae-lee turned his head again and looked at Min Kyung. He asked why she wasn't coming with him, to which Min Kyung quietly agreed and got ready to follow. As they walked out, Tae-lee casually said to the others to do their best with a bright smile, but warned them not to mess with his secretary. The door closed behind them while Hyun Sung silently watched Tae-lee walk away with Min Kyung. The scene opened with a flashback. Back in the past, Hyun Sung, Si-ah, and Min Kyung were spending time together. The three of them had gone out laughing and playing as they picked strawberries. Min Kyung's smiling face had caught Hyun Sung's attention. She looked genuinely happy, and that delighted him. Back in college, there was a moment when Min Kyung asked Hyun Sung about his military enlistment. Hyun Sung told her that he was leaving during the first week of the next month. She laughed, saying she wouldn't be able to survive school without him. Hyun Sung laughed it off and promised he'd be back soon and asked that she just have to wait, to which Min Kyung smiled to agree. The scene shifted back to the present. Inside the TK Town Tower, Min Kyung sighed as she checked the time. It was already past lunchtime again. Since the trip, Tae-lee had been completely focused on his work, barely taking any breaks. Because of that, she had been swamped with work too, often losing track of day and night. Still, She thought it was better than when he avoided his responsibilities. At least now he was showing some effort. She walked toward the small restaurant area, hoping to grab something to eat. Her stomach growled and she mumbled that anything simple would do, but as she looked at the shelf, she was shocked to find it empty. It seemed like most of the office workers at TK didn't eat properly either. She figured they were all just the same, too busy to care. She thought to herself that she needed something to keep her going. Her energy was low and she needed food to work. Just then, she spotted a small packet on the lower shelf. She smiled, thinking it was perfect, and tied on down to grab it. But a shadow fell over her. When she looked up, she saw Tae-lee standing there, asking why she was squatting like that. She was surprised to see the executive director in the break room. Tae-lee, looking down at her, asked for the packet. Min-kyung said it was fine but handed it over. He took it and walked to the counter. The receptionist confirmed that his card had been accepted. As they stepped outside, Tae-lee looked up at the sky and commented that the weather was nice. He asked Min-kyung if she wanted to sit for a bit, and she nodded. They took a seat on a Tae-junch. Tae-lee opened the drink bottle and took a long sip. Min-kyung glanced at his face and then at his lips as he drank. She found herself staring, watching the way he gulped it down. Suddenly, Tae-lee turned to her. He thought, why is she staring at him? He recalled something Tae-jun had once said. Apparently, some girls thought it was sexy when guys drank that way. Tae-lee cursed Tae-jun in his mind and thought maybe he was showing his charms. He quickly tried to change the subject, saying he'd once seen someone drinking it like this and found it annoying, but now it tasted refreshing. Min-kyung sighed, opened the snack packet, and asked if he was having trouble digesting lately. Tae-lee, quite depressed by her reaction, replied that he wasn't, but cursed Tae-jun under his breath, feeling awkward. As Min-kyung struggled to open a chocolate bar, Tae-lee noticed and asked if it was the same one she had liked during her training days. Min-kyung looked at him and asked if he remembered that. Tae-lee laughed, saying it was true. It was refreshing. A short memory flashed in his mind. Back during the 53rd batch of new employee training, Min-young had given him that exact chocolate bar. She had said it was her favorite, praising it for having the best cost-performance ratio. Even when considering the cost per 100 grams, it was cheap, and with the quantity and taste of the nuts, nothing could beat it. Tae-lee remembered her back then, eating the same chocolate. His ears turned red just thinking about it. Even now, just like back then, the chocolate tasted too sweet for him, and the caramel stuck to his mouth. He looked at Min-kyung again. She took a bite of the chocolate bar, and he couldn't stop himself from staring at Min-kyung and her lips. It made him feel just as embarrassed as before. Even now, after all this time, he couldn't help but look at her. His face turned red, but he said nothing. At night, in the office, Min-kyung waited for the elevator. Hyun-sung came from behind, calling her name. Min-kyung turned and asked if he had finished work late again. Hyun-sung brushed it off, mentioning how she was leaving early. Min-kyung replied that she was almost done with her tasks, to which Hyun-sung noted she'd been working hard lately. He then asked why her bag seemed so heavy. Min-kyung said it was because her laptop was inside. When the elevator opened, Hyun-sung quickly grabbed the bag and suggested they have dinner together, saying he knew a few good restaurants nearby. Min-kyung agreed, saying it sounded great. Hyun-sung mentioned he'd wanted to treat her since his first day at work, but she had always been busy. Min-kyung smiled and apologized, saying it was her fault. At the restaurant, while grilling the steak, Min-kyung took a bite and shivered at how good it tasted. She praised it, saying it was really delicious. Hyun-sung asked her to take her time and enjoy it. Min-kyung laughed, saying it felt like she was in heaven, then thanked him. Hyun-sung asked her not to skip meals just because she was busy. He said she seemed too tired lately and urged her to take care of herself. Min-kyung assured him not to worry and said she would eat properly from now on. After eating, they laughed and chatted comfortably. Later, while getting into the car, Min-kyung mentioned that she had work again the next day. Hyun-sung acknowledged it with a nod. Min-kyung sighed and said she didn't want to go home. Hyun-sung asked why so suddenly, and Min-kyung explained that if she went home, she'd need to shower, go to sleep, and by the time she woke up, it would be morning again, and back to work. Hyun-sung, a bit taken aback, said that might be true, but pointed out that at work, she came off as a total workaholic, while still seeming to have a social life. Min-kyung looked unimpressed and asked if he thought she was still some young girl. She reminded him she was an assistant manager at her company. Hyun-sung laughed and said she'd really grown up. Min-kyung questioned what he meant, and Hyun-sung told her she was good at her job. Even the TF team leader had complimented her a lot. Min Kyung nodded slightly, recalling that she had to apologize for what happened that day. She hadn't expected the executive director to react so angrily. She said she figured that was just how he was, but she hadn't imagined he'd behave that way toward Hyun-sung. Hyun-sung smiled and said it was his fault, but Min Kyung paused and disagreed. She thought there might have been something more to it. She remembered how the director had asked what kind of relationship she and Hyun-sung had. She'd told him they were childhood friends, but regretted it immediately. The expression on the director's face had changed, and he looked genuinely upset. Min Kyung figured the director had misunderstood the situation and assumed Hyun-sung was helping her out because of a personal relationship. She understood his perspective, but questioned whether it was worth getting that angry over. She then wondered aloud if something else had happened at the hotel that day. Hyun-sung recalled how Tae-lee had grabbed his wrist, saying he didn't believe Hyun-sung was Min Kyung's boyfriend, and questioned why he was escorting her to her own room, as he found it strange. Hyun-sung asked if the director himself should be the one to escort her instead. He'd left right after, saying there was nothing between them. As they reached the hotel elevator, Min Kyung, now quite drunk, leaned heavily against Hyun-sung. He barely managed to keep her steady and commented that she was completely out of it. Min Kyung, still drunk, looked around the room and said it felt like a hotel vacation. Hyun-sung asked her to be careful not to trip. She stumbled forward and Hyun-sung took a quick glance at the bed. Suddenly, Min Kyung called out to him, saying she couldn't unbutton her top, and asked if he could help her take it off. Hyun-sung, clearly embarrassed, told her she was drunk. As he helped with the buttons, he caught a glimpse of her bare chest and immediately looked away, shocked. A flash of the executive director's face came to mind, and Hyun-sung cursed under his breath. He scolded Min Kyung, asking why she drank so much when she clearly had low tolerance. He asked if she had any idea how dangerous it was to act like that in front of a man. Min Kyung, confused, asked what was wrong as she walked off toward the shower. Hyun-sung sat on the edge of the bed, muttering curses, clearly disturbed by how things had turned out, thinking it is way too dangerous. In the present, Hyun-sung insisted that nothing had happened. Min Kyung scoffed and said that if that were the case, then fine. Hyun-sung cut her off, saying that the executive director's personality was just difficult, to say the least. Min Kyung laughed and agreed. She said the other day he'd been extremely picky about his food, and she didn't like that. She started rambling about other things he did that irritated her. As she continued talking, Hyun-sung held onto the steering wheel and stared ahead, lost in thought. His mind had drifted back to the executive director again. He thought that Lee Tae-lee was quite bothersome. A few days later, as Min Kyung sat at her desk typing and finishing up some tasks, she casually called out to Hyun-sung, saying there would be no overtime for her tonight. Hyun-sung immediately asked if she wanted to have dinner together, and Min Kyung responded that it sounded great. When he asked what time she'd be home, she said she'd be there in about half an hour and would pick up some food on the way. She asked if he'd like some Chinese takeout, mentioning there were plenty of nice places nearby. Just then, she heard a voice behind her. She quickly asked Hyun-sung to give her a moment. Turning around, she saw Tae-lee standing there with a frown, and he didn't look pleased. Min Kyung blinked, surprised, and said she thought he had already gone home. Tae-lee smirked slightly and said he would be working overnight at the office, which caught Min Kyung off guard. Tae-lee scoffed and reminded her almost mockingly that he'd mentioned it earlier. He explained that he needed to coordinate energy solutions in the trade department with the plant business in the construction sector. He added that he'd have to return the next day as well, and sarcastically asked what was so surprising about it. Min Kyung, now visibly holding back her frustration, barely able to mask her anger, tried to stay composed. While she sat still, Tae-lee casually mentioned the meeting scheduled for tomorrow and then glanced at her phone screen. Min Kyung quickly apologized to Hyun-sung over the phone, saying she wouldn't be able to make it to dinner tonight and would call him later as she ended the call. Tae-lee remarked that it seemed like she was supposed to have dinner with her oppa, the word laced with sarcasm, drawing a glare from Min Kyung. He told her that if she had plans, she should go ahead. Then, as if remembering something, he asked if she had received all the requested data and told her to hand it over. Min Kyung admitted she hadn't finished compiling it yet. Tae-lee said that was fine and asked her to give him whatever she had completed so far, adding that the executive director could handle overtime just fine on his own. Min Kyung clenched her fists and hit the desk lightly, then smiled to say that she couldn't let him handle everything alone and would help. Tae-lee looked at her and smiled slightly, telling her to do her best, almost teasingly. Inside, he was quietly panicking. The original plan had completely fallen apart. He had come up with a genius idea, using his full brain power to get her to eat properly instead of surviving on chocolate bars. He had waited for her work hours to end, returned to the office with an excuse, ordered some delicious food, and planned to receive an urgent call and leave just after she ate. It was perfect, or it would have been if she hadn't made dinner plans with Hyun Sung. Now, not only had his plan failed, but she was working overtime again. He had come to take care of her, and somehow he ended up getting stuck in the office too. He recalled her face, frustrated, wondering if she was angry. Her expression clarified it that she was. Still, he told himself she'd be fine if he bought her something tasty. The least he could do was make sure she ate. Opening the door a little while later, he called out for assistant manager Min Kyung, asking about dinner, but when she turned around, her smile looked lifeless and stiff. The sight of it jolted him. He mentioned that if she gave the restaurant his name, they would take care of her order, but he'd written a note just in case. Min Kyung responded calmly, saying she understood and would do that next time she ordered. He tried to bring up something about the risotto, but Min Kyung picked up the telephone to place the order, ignoring his comment. Tae Lee stood there awkwardly, shaken by her coldness. He considered suggesting they order 2 portions and eat together, but assumed she'd refuse if he asked directly. As Min Kyung placed the order, she gave detailed instructions, spreading out the resort rice, reducing the amount of beef, increasing the Parmesan cheese, and adding other specifications. As Tae Lee tried to tell Tae Lee about giving an order for 2 plates, he opened his mouth to say something but hesitated. Before he could speak, Min Kyung hung up and stood up, telling him she would step out to have some food and return, and she would pick up the food on her way back. With that, she walked out, leaving Tae Lee frozen in place, dazed. Sometime later, Min Kyung knocked gently on the office door, calling out that the food had arrived. She set the plates down in front of him and took a step back. Tae Lee glanced at the monitor, then looked at her, asking cautiously if she could clarify something. He didn't think this matched the original data. Min Kyung walked closer, but before she could respond, Tae Lee turned slightly and asked her to sit for a moment, saying they should go over things again. Min Kyung took the seat without a word, and they began to review the materials. As they worked, Tae Lee stared at her and muttered to question what she ate to look even hungrier than earlier. He asked if she'd only had a chocolate bar today, but Min Kyung didn't respond, continuing her work silently. A few moments later, Tae Lee nudged a dish toward her and suggested that she eat. Min Kyung looked surprised and hastily declined, saying she was fine and that the meal was meant for the executive director. Tae Lee insisted he wasn't very hungry and would just have the salad. Min Kyung offered to order something else, but Tae Lee, flustered, stuttered and turned red, telling her to just eat. She eventually nodded and took the plate. As she started eating, she found herself distracted. The scent of his cologne was faint but sharp, making her slightly dizzy. Something about it was overwhelming in the quiet atmosphere. Meanwhile, Tae Lee took a bite of his salad and remarked that it was better than fried chicken, then added that his taste buds were unusually refined. Min Kyung blinked, confused, thinking to herself that the risotto barely had any flavor at all. The scene shifted as Min Kyung was dozing off in the bus. She glanced around briefly, her eyes pausing on the steep slope ahead before closing them momentarily. The faint memories of clinking spoons, soft laughter, quiet breathing, the warmth of his cologne, and harmless jokes swirled through her thoughts. She questioned herself. What exactly was her expression at that moment when he looked at her? Something about the way he looked at her lingered in her mind. Startled by her train of thought, Min Kyung brushed it off. She wondered if she looked unwell. Reaching her apartment, she opened the door and called out that she was back, only to find Hyun Song and Sia already inside, greeting her with a playful remark about her being late. She felt a brief moment of delight seeing them there. Hyun walked over, gently touching her cheek, saying he'd been waiting for her. The TV played quietly in the background. Min Kyung rubbed her shoulder and sighed, joking that she was dying. Hyun immediately questioned her, pointing out that she'd said she wouldn't be working overtime anymore. He asked why she was so late again. Min Kyung replied casually, saying it just kept happening. According to her, the executive director had made a habit of stopping by and finding last-minute tasks to dump on her. She added that he was acting like a child. Sia, visibly disturbed by this, sympathized and asked why it felt like it had been ages since they last saw each other. Min Kyung gave a half-hearted laugh, saying it was probably because she had been out drinking almost every day. Sia looked at her, clearly worried. She mentioned how pale Min-kyung looked and asked if she was eating properly. As a gesture of concern, Sia picked up a chicken leg and offered it to her, even promising to give up chicken legs for the night just for her. She flexed dramatically to lighten the mood. Min-kyung smiled faintly and told her it was okay. She had already had dinner. That caught Sia off guard. With genuine confusion, Sia asked what she meant. Min-kyung turned away slightly and muttered that the executive director had bought her dinner. Hyun-song, sitting nearby, had overheard it all. Sia's jaw dropped as she repeated Min-kyung's words in disbelief. She asked if it had really just been the two of them. Min-kyung didn't reply, choosing instead to sip on her cola in silence. Sia narrowed her eyes, and as her antennas activated, she stated that something felt off. She claimed there was definitely something suspicious going on, saying it all sounded like a classic K-drama setup, overtime being just an excuse to spend time together. Min-kyung stared at her blankly and said she had been watching too many Korean dramas lately, but Sia insisted that it could be real. Min-kyung shook her head. She turned away, saying flatly that the executive director didn't like her. He had made that much clear from the beginning. From the very first time they met at the training center, he'd made it obvious. Now, all he did was bully her for no reason. Maybe, she guessed, he just felt a little guilty today, after seeing her miserable expression. After a pause, Sia leaned in and asked, "What did Min-kyung think about him? Did she like him?" Min-kyung didn't answer immediately. Her mind drifted, recalling the way he looked, the way he acted, and the stupid little smiles that made her heart flutter at the trip. Sia gave a soft smile and admitted that he was extremely handsome. She said he was totally her type, and she'd love to date someone who looked like one of those idols from that group, Yu-Gi-Oh! Yanyan Dan. She said that just seeing someone like that at work would make everything feel better. But Min-kyung, pulling a disgusted expression, quickly shut it down. She insisted it wasn't like that. Sia frowned and asked why she was acting like that. Min-kyung asked her to imagine a Shiba puppy. She asked Sia to picture that it was cute but didn't listen. It growled whenever she got close but still managed to be adorable. She told her to imagine taking care of that dog for more than 10 hours a day. It's quite tiring, and that was exactly how it felt. Sia gave a little nod, starting to understand. Min-kyung said that maybe she could endure it a bit longer and eventually transfer departments, but her pride wouldn't let her leave so easily. She wasn't going to run away. She told them both to just wait. He'd have to recognize her someday. She was determined to earn that acknowledgement, no matter what. As the night wore on, Hyun-song stood up and said he should get going. He wished them both good night and told Min-kyung he'd see her at work the next day. Min-kyung offered to walk with him, mentioning that her stomach felt off and she needed to grab some medicine anyway. Outside, under the quiet glow of the streetlights, Hyun-song mentioned that it had already been a month since he returned to Korea. Min-kyung agreed, saying time had flown by. Hyun-song nodded, saying it felt like just yesterday when they were still in school together. Min-kyung smiled faintly and remarked that walking together like this felt nostalgic. They took breaks together, worked from home side by side, and even collaborated on small projects, just like old times. Hyun-song suddenly slowed his steps and added that back then, there had been so much he could teach her. But now, things had changed a lot. Hyun-song reflected on how much he had to teach her, but now everything had changed. A memory from the classroom surfaced where students whispered about Min-kyung. They'd heard she was only 17 and had made it into the school on the first try. The rumors suggested she might have applied to a lower-ranking school instead, as this wasn't a medical school. The whispers grew louder, but then someone called her name, and she turned to answer, her voice calling out to Hyun-song oppa. Once they were outside, Min-kyung expressed her worry. She hadn't made any friends yet and felt a little isolated, but she was happy to have him by her side. Hyun-sung questioned her about how the classes were going, wondering if she was struggling. Min-kyung explained that she was only taking calculus and linear algebra so far, and they weren't too difficult. She had also started studying mathematical statistics and regression analysis on her own, which seemed like it would be fun. The fact that statistics could uncover patterns in seemingly irregular data, leading to mathematical theorems, fascinated her. She thought it was amazing that any uncertainty could be captured through logic. While she didn't fully understand multivariate analysis yet, she was confident that Hyunsung would teach her anything she didn't know. Hyunsung couldn't help but feel proud. He had helped her through high school, but now she was becoming much smarter than him. Min-kyung was startled by the idea. She quickly denied it, insisting that he knew everything. He was always involved in extracurricular activities and clubs, had many friends, and was admired by everyone. She envied him and wanted to be like him. Hyunsung patted her head, thinking how cute she was. Later at the apartment, Hyunsung's girlfriend was with Hyunsung. As Hyunsung prepared to leave, his girlfriend questioned where he was going, and he replied that he was leaving. He quickly answered, explaining that he thought Min-kyung hadn't eaten yet. His girlfriend seemed annoyed. She questioned why he was still so concerned about Min-kyung when she was right there with him. Hyunsung explained that even though he was only one person, he couldn't ignore someone like Min-kyung, who had come to Seoul all alone. His girlfriend pointed out that Min-kyung wasn't a little kid. She asked why Hyunsung was taking care of her, especially when it was only once or twice, and the last time he had left in the middle to watch a movie with her, as she had wanted to see that movie too. Hyunsung tried to explain that Min-kyung didn't have any friends her age, but his girlfriend snapped that he was making her out to be the weird one. She was already tired of always being in second place, trying to understand Hyunsung's actions, but feeling like the awkward third wheel in their relationship. Hyunsung frowned, confused by all the accusations. He brushed it off, saying that she was just like his little sister, but his girlfriend was quick to remind him that Min-kyung wasn't his real sister with a smirk. But the argument continued, with both of them getting into an ugly face-off. After a heated exchange, Hyunsung, while smoking, thought, how many times has this happened before? He thought, why was his girlfriend making Min-kyung out to be a rival? It was all so complicated, as, unexpectedly, the crack in their relationship deepened. As Hyunsung finished her military service, Sia and Min-kyung came to visit him. She congratulated him on his discharge, and Hyunsung acknowledged that it had been a while since they had seen each other. As Hyunsung saw the rose in Min-kyung's hand, he questioned if it was a discharge gift, to which Min-kyung, embarrassed, quickly explained that today was her coming-of-age day. Sia revealed that Min-kyung had received a confession today, which startled both Min-kyung and Hyunsung. Sia nudged her to tell Hyunsung about it. Min-kyung shyly admitted that someone named Sung-min, a junior in the same department, had confessed to her. Hyunsung stared at her, trying to process this new development, but the news stirred a strange feeling within him. He continued to observe Min-kyung closely, and the idea of her becoming closer to someone else bothered him more than he expected. One day, Hyunsung asked Sia where Min-kyung had gone. Sia responded that she was in her room and seemed upset, claiming that she had broken up with her boyfriend. Hyunsung rushed to her room, knocking softly before entering. He asked if she was okay. Min-kyung, visibly shaken, explained that her boyfriend had told her he hated her. He'd said she was boring, robotic, and didn't even like their relationship. She couldn't understand why he had broken up with her. She had kept all her promises to him, and they were supposed to go on a date once her schedule cleared. She was exhausted and confused. Hyunsung tried to console her, reassuring her that she must be feeling upset. But as he looked at her, Min-kyung's words cut deeper. She was shivering and tears streamed down her face. She asked him if she was weird, if she didn't look like a normal girl, and if she was unattractive. Her vulnerability hit Hyunsung hard, and he realized that she didn't yet understand love in the way he did. He had always been there for her since they were young, but now he wasn't sure if it was possible for him and Min-kyung to be more than what they had always been. As Hyunsung found himself upon Min-kyung staring at her face, he got too surprised. He brushed off, saying not to worry, as those words aren't true, while he cursed himself thinking about what he just thought of. Min-kyung. Once the crack started, things had started to escalate at a terrifying pace, and the relationship between him and Min-kyung seemed to be shifting in ways that he couldn't control. Hyunsung realized that the speed of their growing connection was disrupting everything they had once known. In the heat of the moment, he fled from the situation, unsure of what was happening between them. In the present, as Hyunsung thought about everything, he realized that he only wanted to be there for Min-kyung, to be by her side like family. Hyunsung stated that he was wondering when she grew up so much, to which she scoffed it off, asking if he was going to say it again. But he couldn't understand why he always wanted more, why he desired it so badly. A few days later, Min-kyung stood nervously in front of the mansion. The text message she had received the previous night from Madame Lee Sun-ae, the wife of the TK vice chairman and mother of Tae Lee, had left her feeling uneasy. She had been invited, and now here she was, unsure of what to expect. As she rang the doorbell, she couldn't help but wonder what Madame Lee Sun-ae was truly like. If she were to exclude all the positive qualities people spoke about, she would be left with someone meticulous, a perfectionist, and a daughter-in-law who was so flawless that even the demanding chairman Tai Si-hwan had no room for criticism. Madame Lee Sun-ae was the type of person who never made mistakes, not only within her family, but also with her employees. She was someone who tolerated no errors. The housekeeper soon reported that Min Kyung had arrived. Madame Lee Sun-ae's voice echoed through the house, greeting Min Kyung warmly. She had heard a lot about Min Kyung, especially about her being too affectionate towards Tae Lee. As Lee Sun-ae stated, she heard that she was forced to take this role, as she found the stories of Tae Lee being very demanding to be somewhat true. But Min Kyung denied the claim, saying that she is honored to take the role. Madame Lee Sun-ae smiled, noting how Min Kyung had been taking good care of her son. Min Kyung had to admit, as she looked at the woman before her, Madame Lee Sun-ae was even more stunning in person. She noticed how the executive director Tae Lee bore a striking resemblance to his mother. Lee Sun-ae admitted that she had been worried that Tae Lee had lost his motivation after last year's events, but since Min Kyung had come into his life, he seemed to be back to his old self. Lee Sun-ae thanked Min Kyung for that, and Min Kyung, feeling a sense of accomplishment, promised to continue working hard. As Lee Sun-ae offered Min Kyung some bread, they chatted comfortably. Min Kyung couldn't help but feel that Lee Sun-ae was a genuinely kind person. The conversation then shifted, and Lee Sun-ae asked about Tae Lee's picky eating habits, saying that whenever she leaves him alone, he will pretend to eat and then just starve, to which Min Kyung responded with concern, stating that it must be upsetting for her. Lee Sun-ae laughed lightly, sharing a mother's secret that he was so cute when he was younger. She should have been more firm with him, but she was too soft-hearted, always giving in when he threw tantrums. Min Kyung understood, but Lee Sun-ae continued, explaining that Tae Lee had been naturally sedentary and often avoided eating properly, which led to a series of minor health issues throughout his childhood. Min Kyung couldn't help but notice that he was still the same in many ways. Lee Sun-ae expressed a bit of frustration, saying that she had tried not to worry, but corrected that she was talking about these things to a busy person. She stated that for some reason it was hard not to think of the time when she had first sent Tae Lee back to kindergarten, sitting in a meeting with his teacher. Lee Sun-ae revealed that there was actually another reason she wanted to meet with Min Kyung today. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Soo-jin rushed into Tae Lee's room, announcing that Min Kyung was downstairs. Tae Lee, taken off guard, quickly scoffed, asking if she was already there. Soo-jin, sensing an opportunity to tease him, asked if he had dressed up for the occasion, wondering if he was going on a date. Tae Lee dismissed the idea, stating he had a meeting to attend. Soo-jin, ever the troublemaker, pressed on, joking that it could be a date with Min Kyung. She noticed the tension in the air and pushed Tae Lee further, asking if there was any progress between him and Min Kyung. Tae Lee was visibly uncomfortable and ordered Soo-jin to stop. Soo-jin wasn't deterred. She teased, "What if a man and a woman are always together?" questioning if he thinks something might develop between them. Tae Lee's expression soured, and he snapped at her to stop saying such weird things. He was adamant that he wasn't interested in Min Kyung, and that their working relationship was purely professional. He remarked that this is a company, not a playground. Soo-jin, taken aback by his reaction, wondered why he was so worked up. Tae Lee tried to brush it off, calling her comments disrespectful and pointing out how unpleasant it would be if Min Kyung knew about the jokes Soo-jin was making behind her back. Back downstairs, Lee Sun-ae was discussing with Min Kyung the unfortunate news of Tae Lee's collapse. Reports had rushed in. Min Kyung jumped in to apologize that it was her fault, and she couldn't help but feel responsible. She apologized to Lee Sun-ae, acknowledging that she should have been more familiar with Tae Lee's condition. Lee Sun-ae, however, reassured her that it wasn't her fault. Lee Sun-ae explained that it was logical for Min Kyung not to have been aware of the situation, as her husband, Tae Seok-woo, the vice chairman, had done his best to keep it hidden. He had insisted that the next chairman of TK couldn't have such weaknesses. 34 years ago, to a more public matter, South Korea had become captivated by the love story between TK Group's second daughter, Tae Seo-hee, and an unknown volleyball player, Kang Ji-wook. The media buzzed with rumors, and much attention was now being focused on the future of the TK Group, especially as all eyes were on Lee Seon-jung and the future of CS planning. The political marriage between TK and CS, which signified the union of two companies dominating the Korean economy and media, highlighted the anxiety of domestic informal investors who had been paying close attention to it. It also provided a clue about the direction in which the two companies were headed. As she continued, the Lee Sun-ae asked Seon-jung to forget about that woman, Tae So-hee, calling her irresponsible and untrustworthy. She had abandoned him for a worthless man and broken the promise made between their families. However, as Seon-jung pointed out, she didn't seem to understand what that woman truly meant to him. With So-woo and Sun-ae now set to be married instead, she found the situation ridiculous. She had just graduated from university and now was suddenly expected to get married. She questioned about her own dream. Her passion for journalism and media had been extinguished, and she felt she simply had to endure it. In the course of a man's social life, a woman was expected to support and take care of him. That was what marriage was supposed to be, and she convinced herself that it was okay. She only needed to try her best and think about Emma's. Taelei's father had instructed him that this was an opportunity to reclaim everything that Tae So-hee had taken away. With his natural bloodline and handsome face, people would be drawn to this son. Reporters' cameras continuously flashed at Tae-lee as Jean cried out with pride for her handsome son, encouraging him that he could do it and that he was just like his mother. As Tae-lee embraced her back, he softly assured her not to worry. In the present, Lee Sun-ae smiled, though she apologized, admitting that it had reminded her of her past. It wasn't her fault, even if Tae-lee didn't show it. He was the type who rarely expressed his emotions, so people often failed to notice when he was under stress. He didn't even consider the toll it took on his body, ignoring his health until it eventually collapsed. And that was why, although it was a little embarrassing to admit, she wanted to ask for something later on. As Tae-lee and Soo-jin came down, Min-kyung respectfully bowed to greet him, the executive director. Tae-lee paused briefly before continuing forward, acknowledging her gesture. As Tae-lee greeted his mother, Lee Sun-ae reminded him to eat food, to which Tae-lee responded that there was no need to worry as he wasn't hungry. Lee Sun-ae mentioned that he seemed to have lost weight, and Tae-lee replied that perhaps he had eaten quite a bit of delicious food the previous night, so he was still full. Lee Sun-ae acknowledged that she understood he was in a rush, but pleaded with him to have something before leaving, mentioning that she had made his favorite clam soup that day. Tae-lee apologized and promised that he would make sure to eat breakfast next time. Meanwhile, Min-kyung found herself missing her parents too as she watched the peaceful surroundings near Tae-lee's house. When Tae-lee glanced at her, she got flustered. As he walked past her, he suggested that they should get going. Kim Chun, seemingly unsure, hesitated and then told Min-kyung that he believed it might be better to persuade Madame, handing over a box to Min-kyung. Min-kyung appeared nervous about what she had to do since Madame's peculiar guest was present, radiating strange energy while directing his attention completely at Tae-lee. Tae-lee, slightly taken aback by the items in front of him, questioned what they were for. Min-kyung explained that it was a tonic intended to nourish the body and boost energy during seasonal transitions. When Tae-lee asked if it was herbal medicine, Min-kyung denied it and clarified that the remedy held the essence of a family secret passed down through generations. It was crafted using an exclusive recipe created by the nephew of the direct disciple of a renowned Korean physician. According to her, the formulation was unique and followed a traditional Korean medicinal legacy spanning 170 years. She stated that the herbs had been boiled meticulously for 3 days and nights to extract their full potency, and named it Siron Daebosup. Tae-lee remarked that it sounded like just a regular herbal medicine and questioned where she had bought it from, also asking about the strange-looking cap. Min-kyung explained that the reason herbal medicine often felt unpleasant was because of its appetite-killing color and strong smell. She added that drinking it through a straw helped to block out the smell and made it feel less like taking medicine. As she described the process, Tae-lee grew annoyed and questioned what sort of trickery trickery it was. Min Kyung, somewhat shaken by his reaction, had expected that he might panic like that. She observed how he resembled a dog barking and growling, and wondered why Lee Sunai had put her through such a situation. Min Kyung thought to herself that she had to do it, especially after receiving the envelope from the rich movie lead's mother, which she found highly motivational. She stated that in fact she had heard this particular herbal tonic had been prepared a bit differently. She claimed it wasn't bitter at all and didn't even have a smell. As she moved closer to Tae Lee, he appeared visibly uncomfortable. Min Kyung mentioned that she had a little trick up her sleeve, sharing that her younger brothers had hated medicine so much that she had developed a special ingredient to help them swallow it more easily. Tae Lee turned his face away, asking her not to lie, while thinking that she was standing too close. Min Kyung gently urged him to try just one sip, saying that it even smelled nice, and offered him the straw. Min Kyung believed that Tae Lee might finally agree to drink it. As he got close to the straw and attempted to smell it, Min Kyung got nervous, worried about how he would react. But suddenly, Tae Lee recoiled and shouted, asking her to step back. He questioned what the smell was and asked if it was really supposed to be pleasant. Min Kyung tried to explain that although he might not be a fan of the scent, she herself liked it. Tae Lee was shocked and asked if she genuinely liked that kind of smell. As he moved closer to Min Kyung, she began sweating, sensing that he might be truly angry. Tae Lee cornered her and asked if she thought he was someone who could be easily fooled and whether she believed it was alright to play games with him using some kind of toy chip. Min Kyung hesitated but eventually admitted that the smell reminded her of the executive director's cologne, which was why she liked it. Tae Lee looked stunned by that response, while Min Kyung internally panicked, realizing that it was possibly the dumbest thing she had ever said. Tae Lee let out a sigh and asked her to stop messing around. Then he picked up the cup and, to Min Kyung's shock, drank the tonic in one go. She quickly picked up the candy, surprised by his sudden action. Tae Lee complained that the drink was too bitter. Min Kyung handed him the candy and in her rush ended up manually placing it near his mouth. Tae Lee accepted the candy, sucking it while Min Kyung blushed heavily, realizing that she had just touched his lips. Her heart raced uncontrollably. Tae Lee then took a step back and teasingly asked if she wanted a candy too. He added that if she did, then she should also drink some of the herbal tonic. Min Kyung turned her face away and asked him not to tease her like that. Tae Lee responded that she had been the one teasing him first. Min Kyung tried to deny it, saying she had no idea how she could possibly be teasing him. Tae Lee, clearly amused, said that he found her absolutely adorable. Min Kyung was stunned by his words, while Tae Lee himself was shocked by what he just said. As Min Kyung subtly asked what Tae Lee had just said, he seemed nervous, trying to come up with an excuse. He revealed that it was the cup, mentioning how adorable it was and offering encouraging words. He wondered if she was feeling emotional because of all the compliments. Min Kyung was quite touched by this, and she felt a surge of emotion herself. Tae Lee pointed to her, shaking his head, and questioned what was with that expression. He found it impossible to believe, warning her not to tell him that she thought he was talking about her. Min Kyung asked if the executive director liked Doka as well, and Tae Lee stood dazed at her words. Min Kyung mentioned that she had never actually met anyone who liked Doka before. Tae Lee unconsciously confirmed that this was indeed the case. Afterward, Tae Lee questioned the weird pen in front of him, to which Min Kyung responded that it was a gift. Tae Lee crunched down on it, completely dumbfounded, as Tae Lee poked at the cap of it. Over the past 10 years of her career, Tae Lee had concealed his intentions behind a calculated smile, skillfully navigating negotiations by exploiting the weaknesses of his counterparts. Tae Lee stated that he now understood why manager Kim had achieved such promising results. Tae Lee then questioned why the target setting rate was so low, stating that this is not a nearby convenience store. The employee appeared quite depressed and intimidated by his attitude. Tae Lee asked what the current MS situation was in terms of percentage, as Tae Lee had always been a serious businessman. He questioned if he had to keep track of all this. As Tae Lee opened the cartoon pen, while the employees gathered around to see the octopus in his hands as he signed documents, Min Kyung felt uneasy seeing Tae Lee doing this. Tae Lee ordered Min Kyung to ensure that the changes were communicated so that they could report back. He remarked that bitter medicine might not be pleasant for the mouth, but was effective against illness. He said it was important to take the bitter medicine for good health, and they could always buy candy later for a sweet aftertaste. After the meeting, the employees were rambling, discussing how Tae Lee had managed to observe everything in such a brief moment. They praised his sharp, Insta-like keen eyes, commenting that they were starting to like the company, but not now. As they moved out, Min Kyung politely bid them farewell. Later, Min Kyung knocked on the door, announcing that it was time for the executive director to take his medicine. However, Tae Lee seemed scared and refused, stating that he didn't want to. Min Kyung gently repeated his words, reminding him that bitter medicine wasn't good for the mouth but was effective for illness, which surprised him. Tae Lee shuddered, trying to cover his mouth, but Min Kyung insisted, forcing him to take the medicine. Tae Lee, who had always kept a controlled and reserved demeanor, acting like a child only in front of her, made Min Kyung's heart feel unsettled. After a brief struggle, he finally drank the tonic. The scene then shifted to the Baekhyang task force room. One of the employees called out to assistant manager Min Kyung, asking if the executive director was coming. One mentioned that ever since manager Yang had met the executive director last time, she had only talked about him. Manager Yang expressed surprise, saying that it was rare to meet someone like the executive director in person. They had only heard rumors about him and had initially thought he was the company's promotional model. The employee added that being able to see such a handsome face every day was the best Thai benefit, and she was a little jealous, to which Min Kyung just laughed it off. The other employee then teasingly asked if she was thinking about the executive director in that situation. The managing director was indeed a bit intimidating. The employee confirmed this, questioning if he knew how hard it was to find someone like him. As they looked at Min Ji-ho and Han Song, two other prominent employees, manager Yang affirmed, saying that they too were handsome. Han Song laughed it off, mentioning that they knew they were all busy and would work harder. Afterwards, Min Kyung stood with Tae Lee during the presentation. After the meeting, while walking away, Tae Lee poked her on the cheek, causing Min Kyung to flinch and feel embarrassed. She was overwhelmed with confusion, thinking to herself that every time Tae Lee threw a childlike tantrum or bothered her with a smile, she felt like she was someone special. As Min Kyung in the morning runned off for her morning jog, she suddenly noticed a person running toward her, calling her. To her surprise, it was Tae Lee, smiling warmly as he ran towards her. Min Kyung thought to herself that, just like now, Tae Lee always had a way of confronting her in such a way that made her feel both confused and flustered. As Min Kyung called out to the executive director, questioning why he was there, Tae Lee hopped out and said he had been calling her from over there. Min Kyung apologized, explaining she couldn't hear him due to her earphones. Tae Lee huffed but reassured her not to worry, expressing that he was glad to see her. Walking down the stroll, he noted that her house was nearby and that she lived quite close to him. While he went crazy inside, he wondered if she normally dressed like this on weekends. Min Kyung confirmed that she lived close to the company with convenient transportation, which led Tae Lee to question why he hadn't seen her in all this time. He mentioned that he had been running almost every day lately. Min Kyung explained that she had been feeling a bit down lately and had taken a break from exercising, which caused Tae Lee to gulp nervously, realizing it was because of him. Min Kyung asked if he worked out there as well, to which Tae Lee confirmed he had recently started running as a hobby. He added that when he needed to clear his mind, there was nothing better than a run along the Han River. Min Kyung praised him, saying it was strange because she also came out to run along the Han River whenever she felt like it. Tae Lee responded with praise, saying how odd this coincidence was, while revealing that it was a tip from assistant Kim Chun. Tae Lee then asked what she was thinking about while running today. Min Kyung was about to answer but flinched, startled by seeing Tae Lee's face. Instead, she asked what he thought of the marketing promotion plan she submitted last time, explaining she hadn't received any feedback and was a little worried. Tae Lee paused, realizing that to Min Kyung, he was just an executive director and this was her boss asking her on a day off, probably the worst situation. He called out to Min Young, telling her he would be leaving and wished her to have a nice rest of the weekend. He bid her farewell, reminding her he would see her at work. They had been just colleagues when she joined the company 10 years ago, but now they were executive director and secretary. Tae Lee wondered, what if he wasn't the boss? What if they were still just colleagues? They could have worked together, been friends, and had dinners together. But now, it wasn't that simple. He looked at Min Kyung, thinking about what might have been if she wasn't his secretary. Later at dinner, Min Ji-ho spoke up as one of the employees asked if it was true that Min Ji-ho was getting married to his high school sweetheart. Min Ji-ho confirmed this, showing off his ring and mentioning the wedding would take place in March next year. The female employees were mesmerized, calling it romantic, while one of them cried out that all the men in the office were already in relationships. Another employee pointed to Hyun-song, asking if he would set her up on a blind date, to which Hyun-song laughed it off. One of the female employees then asked Hyun-song if he didn't have a girlfriend, adding that she thought he was already in a relationship. The employees questioned if Hyun-song and assistant manager Kang were dating, causing both Min Kyung and Hyun-song to deny it. The girls expressed surprise, claiming they had seen them leave work together several times and they seemed very close. Min Kyung laughed it off, explaining that sometimes people misunderstood them. She added that Hyun-sung was just very nice to her. But the manager interrupted, persisting, asking why they didn't date, causing Min Kyung to freeze in shock. The manager insisted that the two of them were perfect for each other. They both had great jobs, good personalities, and good looks, and were of marriageable age. Their soulmate was right next to them. Min Kyung quickly denied it, saying they were more like family. The manager then argued that it was even better that way, claiming that marriage worked best when a person was comfortable with someone they could trust. He added that only foolish women chased after men, and women were happiest when they married a man who treated them like a princess. He then asked Min Kyung if she was smart enough to understand. Hyun-song laughed it off, questioning why the manager was making Min Kyung uncomfortable. The manager pointed out that Min Kyung might not look pretty, but if you looked closely, she had a beautiful face. Hyun-song responded, joking that the manager knew that this behavior was considered workplace harassment and that he should stop before the employees misunderstood. The manager, now nervous, laughed it off, claiming he was only joking. Min Kyung also laughed it off, saying if she had a boyfriend like Hyun-song, she would have married him immediately. She playfully asked him to introduce her to someone, to which the manager laughed even more. The next day, at TK Tower, Min Kyung told Hyun-sung they must be getting old, now talking about marriage and not even dating. Hyun-sung agreed, mentioning that his mom had been fussing about him going on a blind date lately. Min Kyung smiled, commenting on how persistent his aunt was and questioning what the point of getting married in such a way was. She stated that she should probably start with dating first, wondering aloud how she was even supposed to manage that with how busy she already was. She questioned how she was supposed to date when she hated the idea of having to take care of and worry about someone else. As she voiced her thoughts, whispers began to ripple through the group of female employees. They were murmuring in excitement, recognizing the person walking by. It was none other than the executive director, Tae Lee. As Tae Lee, quite distant, briefly glanced toward Min Kyung, his eyes catching sight of her. He slowed his pace for a moment, standing still as he looked at her while Min Kyung stared at him. As the employees whispered about the executive director pointing toward them, Tae Lee took a peek at Min Kyung. As Min Kyung, meeting his eyes, turned her face down and bowed. As she bowed, Tae Lee walked toward her while they were bowing. Tae Lee glanced at Min Kyung with Hyun-song as he didn't say anything. An employee called out for Tae Lee, saying he had heard the greens at NMCC were in good condition this time and asked if he had played there, to which Tae Lee affirmed. They suggested visiting there before the season ended, and Tae Lee moved with the employees. As Min Kyung was seeing him go away, suddenly Hyun-song placed his hand on her, questioning what she was doing since they should go. Min Kyung, quite taken aback, responded they should do that. Tae Lee took a peek at Hyun-song, placing his hand around Min Kyung and talking close to her. As Hyun-song got even closer, Tae Lee stood there watching it all while Min Kyung smiled with Hyun-song in return. As Hyun-song glanced at Tae Lee and their eyes met, Hyun-song simply smiled and walked away with her, disappearing into the crowd. Afterwards, Tae Lee threw his jacket in frustration and cursed, claiming the punk had done it, wondering why he was bothering Min Kyung like that and acting like a crazy psychopath. He pondered, thinking over the question, wondering if Hyun-song was just a close brother. It sounded ridiculous. Even his gaze seemed strange. He questioned if someone like that could be trusted and if Min Kyung wasn't realizing she was being foolish. But Tae Lee denied such thinking, rejected the idea as he questioned if they were in a relationship. Come to think of it, back at the hotel they had done it. As Ty Lee drowned in illusions about Min Kyung and Hun Song being close, a knock suddenly happened. Min Kyung questioned Ty Lee if he enjoyed his meal and mentioned she would begin the afternoon briefing. As Ty Lee gave no reply, Min Kyung continued, stating the afternoon schedule included a review of plans to achieve this quarter's promotion and a meeting with each department head. After that, they would move to the Suwon branch. Finally, she added that if he had approved the final report on the accounting audit, the day's schedule would be complete. As Tae Lee could not hold back, he called out to Min Kyung, stating he didn't care if the two of them were dating or not, but insisted they must keep personal lives and work separate in the office. Min Kyung, quite jolted by this, asked what he was talking about. Tae Lee countered her, questioned if she didn't know, before turning his face away. He remarked that if a close aide to the director was romantically involved with a temporary lawyer, how would that appear to others? Min Kyung, quite shocked, responded it was a misunderstanding and began to say lawyer Hyun Song was just, but Tae Lee interrupted, stating he was a close brother and questioned if she expected him to believe it. He, clearly frustrated, pointed out the two had gone through the hotel together and no one would misunderstand that. Min Kyung gave no answer. Tae Lee thought he had made a mistake, subtly realizing what he had said was wrong, but Min Kyung affirmed it calmly and stated she would be careful. Later, at Min Kyung's home, while under the blanket, her door password opened as Si-ah came in. Min Kyung came out calling for Si-ah, who entered with a cheer, suggesting they celebrate later. During the party, Si-ah bragged that she had secured an exclusive interview with Patrick Poivre, CEO of GV. Min Kyung praised her, congratulated her, and said it was great. Si-ah added no one knew about it yet and asked Min Kyung not to tell anyone, saying it remained off the record and he would be visiting Korea next month. Min Kyung cheered with her and mentioned GV was indeed the most famous company in the fashion industry these days. Si-ah explained it was surely worth flying over 15 hours all the way to France and mentioned she had been too busy to sightsee. Still, she brought Min Kyung a gift, presenting her with a different box. Min Kyung remarked that it seemed expensive and added she usually didn't wear such things. But Si-ah wrapped the scarf around her neck, saying she thought it would suit her, was light to wear, looked stylish, and asked if it appeared too pretty. Seeing her reflection in the mirror, Min Kyung affirmed and thanked her, saying she would wear it on an important day. Si-ah advised her not to think about work all the time and sometimes dress up, enjoy herself, and have a drink too. Min Kyung recalled Tae Lee's face, and her expression changed. Si-ah noticed and questioned what was wrong, but Min Kyung denied anything. Si-ah sensed something and expressed she didn't want Min Kyung to overthink, suggesting she wanted to look good for the executive director. Min Kyung replied she had to maintain a good appearance since he was the executive director after all. But Si-ah disagreed, clarifying it was not like that, but more like a man and a woman. Min Kyung denied the idea, called it ridiculous, and reminded her they were talking about Tae Lee. Si-ah questioned why not, hinting she might be attracted to him. Min Kyung admitted it was natural to feel a bit excited when such a handsome man walked around the office, but pointed out that if it were so, then all the female employees must feel the same way. She stuttered to state she didn't like him, and never had from the first time they met, and she truly hated guys like the executive director. She turned her face away while pouting. In the flashback 10 years ago at the academy, one of the candidates whispered that people had been calling their group the Dream Team. Min Kyung questioned what that meant, to which another replied it was all because of that person. Someone else wondered aloud why the two top students had been placed in their group. They figured the instructors must have expected them to take care of each other. Still, they pointed out that they wouldn't be penalized for not getting first place, and someone mentioned feeling scared. Another said he thought the same. One candidate asked why that parachute had been hired through the public recruitment process, saying some deserving candidate probably lost the chance. Someone else agreed and stated that many found it uncomfortable, questioning whether he was any different from other chaebols. The other responded that he couldn't help but feel jealous of a third-generation chaebol, since he had spent years preparing to get into the company. Min Kyung interrupted them and asked if he had really been a parachute or if any cheating had occurred. If so, how could he have ranked second place, to which they affirmed it. She encouraged them not to focus on that and instead to do their best. Besides, she added that dream team actually sounded good. Afterward, she glanced at Tae Lee, thinking this person, taller than everyone by a head, had a gentle voice and graceful movements. She wondered how someone could look so perfect, like a prince straight out of a fairy tale. As Tae Lee glanced back at Min Kyung, she hoped to impress him and smiled, and he smiled back. Min Kyung felt light, her heart fluttering. She smiled again, clearly affected. Tae Lee saw her just a simple girl smiling blankly and turned his face away, slightly embarrassed. Later in the mess hall, Min Kyung carried a plate and noticed Tae Lee sitting alone. She smiled at him again and Tae Lee began sweating a little. He invited her to sit and she thanked him before sitting across from him. As Tae Lee coughed up a little, Min Kyung asked if he had any allergies. Tae Lee denied it and asked why she brought it up. Min Kyung said he looked a little uncomfortable and asked if he felt itchy anywhere on his neck or body. Tae Lee admitted that he thought it felt that way. Min Kyung suggested it might be due to dust or the heater. Tae Lee paused and asked if team member Min Kyung felt the same. Min Kyung smiled faintly and denied it, saying she felt totally fine. She complimented the fish, saying she couldn't believe how little oil it had and that it wasn't greasy at all. She encouraged him to try it. Tae Lee added lemon to the dish and took a bite. He seemed delighted, which made Min Kyung smile. Tae Lee remarked that it was more delicious than he had expected. Suddenly, someone called out to Min Kyung, asking about the montage assignment and suggesting that it would be helpful to explain business topics with examples. Tae Lee remained dazed while Min Kyung explained it to him. Afterwards, as Min Kyung explained the performance to her teammates, they could wrap it up by spreading their arms, showing a sketch of the presentation. The other candidates praised her, calling her the best and complimenting her drawing skills. Tae Lee was shocked after seeing the sketches and questioned aloud what kind of talent show this was. Min Kyung insisted they had to win first place and reminded them they were the dream team. She then asked who could be the protagonist. One of the candidates suggested Tae Lee. The others agreed, saying it was a perfect choice, that he looked just like a male lead, and they believed he would be amazing. They voted Tae Lee as the protagonist, clapping and laughing. Tae Lee chuckled, trying to play it off casually. Min Kyung looked at him and explained that while choreographing the performance, she had thought of Choi Sung-young since he was on the judo team. She explained that the highlight of their performance would be a lift, so it made sense for someone strong to take the role. Sung-young twinkled at her, clearly pleased. Tae Lee laughed awkwardly and claimed he didn't have that much strength. Min Kyung gave him a thumbs up and said he didn't need to overexert himself. Even without Tae Lee, they could still win first place. Tae Lee got frustrated and questioned what she meant by that, insisting that he could handle it. Tae Lee then demonstrated by lifting one of the girls just as the choreography required. The candidates clapped in praise and Min Kyung joined them. Tae Lee asked if she had seen that, to which Min Kyung clapped and said he was really good. Tae Lee felt touched by her response, but before he could soak it in, Min Kyung turned her face and announced that Tae Lee, Sung-young, would be the main character of the performance, which startled Tae Lee. He became irritated and stared at Min Kyung afterwards. He gave her a sharp glare while Min Kyung swallowed hard and frowned, wondering if she had made a mistake. She glanced at Tae Lee, but he turned his face away. Min Kyung wondered silently what was wrong as she noticed he was smiling at other people. Afterwards, it was announced they would make paper airplanes in teams as well, and the flight time and distance of each plane would be calculated and added up for every team. As Tae Lee and Min Kyung were on the same team again, Tae Lee felt annoyed. It had to be Min Kyung once more. He couldn't understand why he kept getting teamed around her, and it felt uncomfortable. He tried to suggest they choose the paper first and decide on a color, to which Min Kyung responded any color would be fine, as there didn't seem to be a difference in weight or size. Tae Lee got caught up wondering if she had ever folded a paper airplane, and in response, Min Kyung admitted she hadn't done it specifically, but she believed she could predict the most efficient shape. She went on explaining how flight depended on thrust, drag, lift, and gravity, and how stable flight relied on how these were distributed. She added that in regular airplanes, lift was generated by the Bernoulli principle, but in paper airplanes it was more about implementing a streamlined wing. As she went on about complex concepts, Tae Lee felt like his ears might start bleeding, questioning silently what she was even talking about. Min Kyung continued rambling, mentioning they also had to consider the location of the center of lift and the center of gravity to extend flight time. Tai Lee affirmed it, and Min Kyung completed the phrase with a twinkling smile directed at him. Tai Lee pulled out a piece of paper stating he would be the one to fold the first plane, adding that she was in luck. He happened to enjoy origami. Min Kyung looked shocked, realizing it resembled something unexpected from a third-generation chaebol. She asked if it was true, and Tai Lee confidently affirmed that, of all things, paper airplanes were his specialty. He asked if she wanted him to fold something like a fighter jet, stealth F-15K connector, Sky King Delta, or a high-speed plane. Min Kyung looked alarmed, admitting she didn't recognize those by name and would need to see their shape, which only served to annoy Tai Lee further. Min Kyung tried to explain in her way that if the wing pointed downward, it was referred to as a lower angle, and if it was shaped like a boy, it was considered an upper angle. In general, the upper angle had a broader area for wind reception, making it more stable. Tai Lee cut her off mid-sentence, telling her to stop. He accused her of taking everything too seriously, reminding her this was just a friendly activity, which left Min Kyung visibly taken aback. She responded firmly, saying if they were participating, they might as well aim for first prize, as the team whose plane came in first would receive a TK Note 1. Tai Lee, standing to the side, reacted in disbelief, thinking it clearly looked like a clearance sale. Still, he admitted he liked her ambition, assuming she must have planned to give her all just to become the top recruit at TK. It made him feel he would have to watch out from now on. He believed Min Kyung, who seemed to love being number one, might have been aiming for the top spot at TK as well. Min Kyung, feeling shocked, asked how he came to such a conclusion. Tai Lee stated with a hint of pride that he was actually selfish and loved to argue. He admitted he had tried to keep it a secret from everyone, but guessed he had been found out. Min Kyung seemed flustered by how close they had suddenly become, but quickly returned to focus. She promised to keep his secret safe. Tai Lee scratched his hair and told her it was enough. Later on, Min Kyung called out to her teammate Tai Lee and approached him. He turned his face away. Min Kyung told him not to worry, adding he didn't give off the wrong impression and came across as a rational and reasonable man. Tai Lee replied he might seem cold, but Min Kyung countered by calling him gentle, kind, and polite. Tai Lee jokingly added he must be perfect, trying to drown her in words. As Tai Lee inspected the paper airplane, Min Kyung stared at him. When he noticed and asked what it was, she affirmed again that he seemed absolutely perfect. Tai Lee paused, thinking she was making that expression again, the one that always made him feel like nothing. He feels like he becomes a boring guy when he is around her, and the thought hurts his pride. He turned away silently, trying not to show it. Later, Min Kyung became serious, denying the possibility of change since she was the only one familiar with all the performance scripts. One of the candidates apologized, revealing she couldn't perform due to a sudden leg injury. Tai Lee screamed at the news, wondering if this meant Min Kyung's role would change. Min Kyung calmly told him not to worry, reassuring him that she had always trained her body for unforeseen situations. The candidates praised her, calling her amazing, while Tai Lee felt spooked, thinking if there was anything Min Kyung couldn't do. He pointed out the short notice and wondered if this would affect anything. Min Kyung tried to ask whether it was too difficult for team member Tai Lee, to which he quickly responded that it wasn't. Min Kyung commented that she and team member Song Yeon-ju had different physiques, so Tai Lee might definitely feel the burden. Tai Lee felt slightly offended by the word burden. Min Kyung explained she didn't mean it that way and suggested a simple revision, just as team member Tai Lee had mentioned. Tai Lee shouted it was easy for him and there was no problem at all. Later, during the act, as Tai Lee got into position, he realized he had been tricked again and fallen for a provocation. He began wondering if Min Kyung was around 170 cm tall or weighed about 70 kg. He assumed she must be heavy, but didn't know for sure. When Min Kyung jumped onto him and he pulled her up, Tai Lee noticed she felt smaller and lighter than he had expected. As he held her, he unintentionally felt her chest. His finger automatically rose toward it, and he silently thought it was very big. In no time, Min Kyung toppled over onto him. Tai Lee suddenly woke up from what had only been a dream, breathing heavily. He checked his pants and groaned in frustration, completely overwhelmed. As Tae showered in his pitiful mental state, he kept cursing himself, repeatedly denying everything as he struggled to believe what had happened. Slapping himself, he questioned if he had gone completely crazy. How could he have such a dream about a subordinate? Especially Min Kyung of all people? With peaceful, blissful music playing in the background, he tried to justify it. He had been under a lot of stress lately. Maybe he had just gone temporarily insane. Still, he couldn't wrap his head around how he ended up dreaming about that weird, math-obsessed, hopeless, glasses-wearing AI Kang Min Kyung. Yet, even as he thought this, his mind drifted. He had to admit, she was pretty. Remembering the chess moment from earlier, he quickly slapped himself again. He questioned himself. What was wrong with him? He who had resisted the hands of suspicious people, obsessive lovers, tremendous goddesses, idols, schoolmates, athletes, countless temptations with ill intentions, was now losing his composure over Min Kyung, who didn't even seem to care about him. He was tall, handsome, rich, and good at everything. There was no reason for him to get stuck on her. He told himself not to overthink it. It was natural, something that happened to healthy men. There was no need to feel guilty. He curled up with determination, reassuring himself that he was a man. With elegant swan music playing in the background, he let out a light giggle, calling himself a rascal. He reminded himself he was amazing. Tall, good-looking, wealthy, and talented. There was nothing to be worried about. Outside, the weather had turned chilly, but the air inside remained warm. Beautiful music filled the space, and Tae felt drowsy. Just then, Min Kyung entered the room and greeted him. Tae instantly snapped out of it, shouting as he stared at her outfit, asking what in the world she was wearing. Min Kyung casually explained she had turned on the heater and it was getting a bit hot. Tae ducked behind the desk, yelling at her to turn the heater off right away. If she was cold, she needed to put something on, not strip down. He questioned the point of using the heater in the first place. Min Kyung tried to argue that he was the one who got cold easily, but Tae cut her off, shouting that it was about carbon reduction. Their company was eco-friendly now, and heating wastage wasn't acceptable. Min Kyung lowered the heater settings, visibly annoyed at his barking. She questioned what was wrong with him, but before she could go on, Tae ordered her to get out and not return until he called for her. Later that night, Min Kyung vented to Si-ah, complaining that Tae had suddenly blown up in anger. She confessed she had never met someone so unpredictable and self-centered in her life. Si-ah, surprised, said things had been going fine for a while and wondered what triggered Tae again. Hyunsung chimed in, agreeing that Tae was a weird guy, and advised her not to expect much, despite how he looked. Min Kyung added that he acted fake around others, smiling, lowering his voice and pretending to act serious. It was kind of funny but also shameless. She imagined smacking the hell out of him every time he acted like that. Min Kyung admitted she wanted to hit the back of his head whenever she got the chance. Si-ah laughed, saying it was the first time he had seen Min Kyung curse someone like this. She turned to Hyunsung, who was enjoying the rant, raising his glass and cheering. Min Kyung stated that while it was hard, it wasn't that big of a deal. He could keep acting the way he wanted. She wasn't hurt. Hyunsung, looking concerned, called her name and told her not to be so prideful. He encouraged her to think objectively. She had worked at TK for 10 years and was more than capable of becoming an assistant manager. He questioned if it was really worth enduring all this to work for someone who treated her like that. Even if Tae was Tae, the days of him being the TK crown prince were over. He asked if she was scared of getting punished for speaking out, promising to help her legally in any way he could. Min Kyung quickly denied it, saying that wasn't the reason. She apologized for worrying him. Hyunsung seemed disappointed. He told her he didn't think she understood. He hadn't wanted to bring it up, but she knew deep down that Tae wasn't such a nice person. He told her to look at the resort project, for instance. Despite it being someone else's responsibility, the executive director, vice chairman Ta Seo-woo, could have handled it. But just then, Min Kyung interrupted Hyunsung, asking him to stop. She looked serious. The way she said it startled Hyunsung. Min Kyung told him again, stop it. Hyunsung was quite taken aback by Min Kyung's reaction, as Min Kyung stated that the executive director is a very pitiful person. As Hyunsung questioned what, stating it sounded ridiculous, Tae was a third-generation chaebol, Min Kyung remained hesitant. mentioning he didn't know anything, for which Hyun-song replied he obviously knew. It was all in the data. He pointed out the Baekhyung resort case. There had clearly been illegal M&A. According to Min Kyung, the vice chairman had been in charge of it. Due to the company's financial structure, Tae Lee probably hadn't known the details, to which Hyun-song agreed, hypothetically accepting Tae Lee hadn't known. He then asked who she thought had benefited the most from it. Min Kyung admitted she knew, but questioned what could be done. This was just how their job worked. The next day, Min Kyung received a message from Tae Lee stating that starting tomorrow, she should head straight to work and not meet him at the office at 8 o'clock. As it had been announced that the stop was in front of the TK building, Min Kyung got off the bus. Turning her face toward the crowd, she stood shocked by the protesters demanding not to be forced into resignation and calling for guaranteed job security while fighting for their rights. As the crowd thickened, Min Kyung dashed toward the executive director, only to see Tae Lee staring at them, listening to all the chants and curses from the people. Tae Lee asked her to explain. Min Kyung responded that during the M&A process of the Baekhyung resort, to avoid mass layoffs, they had signed an asset purchase contract instead of a merger and acquisition. Tae Lee questioned if she knew about it. She hadn't told him beforehand. Hesitating, Min Kyung explained the business target had been significantly lower than the company's daughter firms, and the M&A size had not required approval from the executive director under regulation, so she hadn't reported it separately. Tae Lee laughed slowly, stating it was right, it had always been like this. As if knowing everything going on in his head, he approached Min Kyung, stating she had been annoying from the beginning, but she had forgotten that for a moment. He questioned if she believed Song Baekja would guarantee her a promotion to executive by doing this, and if so, she had chosen the wrong side. Even someone smart like King Min Kyung should have known better. When Min Kyung tried to deny it, Tae Lee interrupted, asking if it was because of her brothers. With a smug face, he questioned her sacrifice, asking if it had been for her family, leaving Min Kyung greatly shocked. Tae Lee stepped closer, saying she must have thought he wouldn't find out. He called her naive. He had pretended not to know and had lived this way his entire life. He knew his situation better than anyone. He had dedicated his life to the company as much as she had, and he knew more about the company than she did. He asked if she didn't think he knew more than her. Grabbing her arm, he questioned if this was the first or the last time. As he lived cleaning up the mess his father had left, he screamed Kang. Min Kyung had become his secretary to handle that, since she was blackmailed. As Min Kyung tried to explain, Tae Lee grabbed her arm tight, asking if she was enjoying playing with him. With his eyes filled with tears, he asked why she interfered in his business. Min Kyung groaned in pain, causing Tae Lee to startle at the sight. He released her arm, stepping back as he scratched his face. As Min Kyung turned to leave, Tae Lee called her back, pleading with her to apply for a transfer to another department. He promised he would ensure she wouldn't be at a disadvantage. Forcing the words, he asked why she had done it, then told her to leave and get out of his sight. Min Kyung paused, then called out to the executive director. She shouted for Tae Lee to come to his senses, her words striking him like thunder. She screamed they needed to resolve it quickly and not make such weak excuses now. No employee was unaware that he had dedicated himself to Tae Group for the past 10 years. That was the reason he had maintained his position without wavering, even with the owner replaced by the vice chairman. She felt honored to have always been able to assist him as the executive director. But was he really planning to throw away all his efforts so easily? That would be a waste. Min Kyung stated she didn't want a single stain on her company life. He knew she had always been assigned impossible goals and projects since her first day at TK. Still, she had never once failed a performance evaluation. She assured him he had nothing to worry about. Tae Lee trembled, laughing inwardly. He affirmed this was indeed Kang Min Kyung, TK's secret weapon. As Min Kyung dropped to her knees, pleading for orders, Tae Lee reflected that for her, this was just work. He told Min Kyung to do whatever she wanted, yet deep down, he still held on to hope for something more in her words, wondering if she hadn't noticed it. Former Vice Chairman Tae Seo-woo had abnormally inflated the cooperative value of the resort business and repeatedly conducted illegal mergers, acquisitions, and window dressing accounting in an effort to list the company on the stock market. During the process, the acquisition and merger of Baekhyang Resort had not been a general M&A, but rather an illegal asset purchase and sale contract. This removed any legal obligation for employment succession or negotiations between TK and the labor union. TK Group could have easily avoided responsibility and dispersed the illegal strike protests with police support. However, they chose to meet the delegation directly and listen to their demands instead. The labor union continued to insist the new company should recognize and guarantee the employment of all existing workers after the merger and acquisition. Despite facing media pressure, internal opposition, declining stock prices, constant data reviews, and mounting stress, DK Corporation, under Executive Director Tae Lee, took responsibility for the employment. Even while paying significant fixed costs, they made that decision. Later that night, Tae Lee exercised while calling for Assistant Manager Kang, asking if she could calculate the redundant workforce and productivity ratio in case employment succession was finalized. Min Kyung agreed without hesitation. As she worked, Tae Lee silently observed her. She reported the current personnel overlap in each division wasn't significant, about 15%, and reassignment of redundant staff to new business departments could improve manpower usage and productivity. She added, based on ERP calculations, the proportion of labor costs within total fixed costs fell within a reasonable range. As her explanation continued, Tae Lee paused and unexpectedly asked why she had chosen to come to TK. Min Kyung, slightly puzzled, replied it was because the salary was the highest in the industry, then questioned why he had asked something like that. Tae Lee hesitated before admitting sometimes he felt it was unfortunate she worked merely as a company employee. Min Kyung, surprised, asked if he really thought so. Tae Lee tried to explain he had secured his position through his grandfather's connections, and wouldn't someone like her usually aim to be a doctor or lawyer? He added she could have studied abroad or entered graduate school, probably with ease, considering her academic record. Min Kyung admitted honestly she had always known she was different. She mastered the basic school curriculum the moment she entered elementary school and had gone through a period of emotional emptiness and apathy, which caused her parents great concern. Since childhood, she always did everything more easily than others. She never found anything truly difficult. This revelation stunned Tae Lee, as he realized she had been a performer on an entirely different level. Min Kyung then shared how her younger siblings took up sports early on. They had shown promise as short-track speed skaters in elementary school. However, as their personalities and body types changed, a transition to speed skating became necessary to continue progressing. Originally, their parents had encouraged them to quit sports and pursue graduate school, but she simply stated she would find a job and didn't mind doing anything, as her siblings meant more to her than just athletic dreams. She asked aloud if it was really necessary to be exceptional. She preferred happiness found in normalcy, nothing extraordinary, just time with family and friends. Tae Lee replied that it sounded nice. All his life, he believed he had to become someone exceptional. Min Kyung reassured him, calling the executive director amazing, which embarrassed Tae Lee. He shouted not to make fun of him, to which Min Kyung asked what he meant, expressing disbelief at the idea she could even do such a thing. Tae Lee scratched his hair, telling her not to talk nonsense again. Min Kyung pouted, thinking she had meant every word. To many, Tae Lee of TK Group appeared to be the Songbaekha's most beautiful flower. People envied a life untouched by hardship, a flower blooming in the highest and most splendid place. Perhaps Tae Lee had spent his entire life trying to prove himself inside the boundaries of that elite image. Later at night, Tae Lee stirred awake, thinking he had only dozed off for a moment. Checking the time, he noticed hours had passed. Turning his head, he noticed Min Kyung had also fallen asleep nearby. He moved closer, softly calling for the assistant manager. As he bent toward her, he told her gently to wake up and head home for rest. Seeing she remained asleep, he paused, watching her still face. He waved his hand above her and whispered that she was a fool. In that moment, Tae Lee thought inwardly how she knew so little about the world. He paused again, this time to stare at her neck. As his gaze slipped toward her chest, Tae Lee's face turned red, sweat forming on his forehead. Abruptly, he rushed back to the bathroom, his face flushed and heart racing. Inside, he cursed himself, thinking that he had gone crazy. Afterwards, it swept through like a storm. Min Kyung was so busy with work that she didn't realize the season was already at the end of winter. Min Kyung thought to herself that it had been snowing a lot this year. Winter weather was really making itself felt. Later, in the office, Tae-lee and Min Kyung were having a cozy time. Tae-lee questioned if today's schedule was over and if he could finally take a breath. Min Kyung affirmed that she had just received the resort food and beverage accounting report, along with the list of responsible persons from the electric base. She then asked what they should do with it, stating that she had now grasped the current status of internal information sharing among the IR team members. She would schedule a meeting to discuss this matter, to which Tae-lee gave her a stare. Tae-lee said that he thought they had taken care of everything during the previous audit, but it seemed like they still had a lot of work to do. He frowned in frustration, feeling as though he had tried so hard to minimize the damage by working overtime every day, yet the financial statements were still a mess. Min Kyung, trying to motivate him, mentioned there was good news as well. She stated that when a post by a Baekhyang Resort Union member went viral on SNS a while back, she then added that their TK group had just ranked first in both the Corporate Brand Reputation Index and the ESG Reputation Index. Many media outlets and civic groups were reportedly showing positive reactions to Executive Director Tae-lee's actions. Tae-lee stated that he had just done what anyone else would have done and wasn't sure if he deserved such praise after ignoring the problem for so long. Min Kyung smiled and reassured him that at the end of the day it was a decision that no one else could have made and he deserved the praise. Tae-lee, quite impressed by her words, was touched. Min Kyung assured him not to worry, saying that things would only get better from here and that she would continue to do her best by his side. Tae-lee, inwardly embarrassed, thanked Min Kyung silently. He thought to himself that he had such a capable and loyal employee, but he also cursed himself for his wayward thoughts. His mind, despite all the professionalism, was filled with inappropriate thoughts of an 18-plus nature, and he called himself the worst of the worst. He cried out in frustration. During their time